Media, an illusion of choice. Do you know that only 6 corporations own 90% of the American media? The most powerful special interest group in Washington is the media. The media is the gateway of information to the American public, and any politician strives to reach the public through the media. Thus, the media have a great say in which politician is granted a voice. To provide a historical perspective, in 1983, 90% of the American media was controlled by 50 companies. Through a history of mergers and acquisitions, these companies have concentrated their control over what we see, hear, and read. In many cases, these companies control everything, from initial production to final distribution. Now only 6 companies own 90% of our media. Our main source of information and cultural output is coming from these 6 giant conglomerates: Comcast, News Corp, Disney, Viacom, Time Warner, and CBS. Profit maximization is the ultimate goal of every corporation. And if that goal becomes entangled with reporting the truth in the news, what will ultimately win out? What happens when there is no one left to compete with? When one company owns everything in your town, does the people in your town have a voice in their media anymore? Would they hear or watch content that is relevant to their lives? Probably not. The more independent media outlets a community has, the more different viewpoints will be presented on air. And the question that arises, do we really have a choice in our media?
As a public service, TV Free Baltimore provides a digital soapbox for those the mainstream media ignores. The opinions expressed in this live stream are not necessarily those of the owners, management, or underwriters of TV Free Baltimore. Furthermore, TV Free Baltimore streams hyper-local content focusing on politics and entertainment in the Baltimore viewing area.
Streaming live from the Paul and Catherine Ranke Memorial Studio, this is TV Free Baltimore. Support for TV Free Baltimore comes from viewers like you. Become a TV Free Baltimore member by visiting patreon.com/tvfreebaltimore.
Welcome to TV Free Baltimore's live stream for Saturday, April the 21st, 2018. With Maryland's primary election season moving along, we're turning our attention once again to local libertarians. We first interview the Libertarian Party of Maryland's nominee for the U.S. Senate. We follow that up with the party's nominee for the U.S. House of Representatives for Maryland's 8th District. For the entertainment portion of this stream, we're screening a local film entitled The Recursion Theorem. We follow that with an interview from the writer and director of the film, and directly following that, we interview the star of the film. And due to time constraints, the usual commentary about local politics will not take place, so we can leave room for the following programming. Enjoy.
Hi! Hi! I'm Dawn Wells, and guess what? You are watching TV Free Baltimore.
What's the national debt? It's a monster.
To your left, folks, is the Washington Monument. To your right, the White House. And over there, just beyond the Capitol, is the national debt.
Whoa! Wow! There's something huge, red, white, and blue, that's grazing in D.C. It's gobbling up the taxes that are paid by you and me. It doesn't seem to notice we really can't afford the billions that it's costing us to pay its room and board. It doesn't roam, but seems content to dwell on Capitol Hill. As long as trucks keep pulling up with tons of greenback bills, we've got to feed the big guy. We really can't forget. It has an awesome appetite, Tyrannosaurus debt.
The debt was born in 1790 when our new government took over $75 million the colonies spent in the Revolutionary War.
We've got to feed the monster so it doesn't get upset. It's got an awesome appetite, Tyrannosaurus debt.
Alexander Hamilton, our first Secretary of the Treasury, he's on the 10, you know, wanted a federal debt to provide a reason to establish taxes to support our new nation.
The debt was young, they kept it small, they didn't know back then. In 1812, another war would make it grow again. By 66, the Civil War had cost the nation millions. The government in Washington now had a debt of billions.
The Civil War ran up a debt of almost $3 billion that still wasn't paid off by World War I.
We're spending money we don't have, or so it would appear. The deficit is that amount we overspend each year. Though congressmen and senators make vows to cut its size, despite their honest efforts, the debt just seems to rise.
Now the debt's over $5 trillion and still growing.
A balanced budget would be great to spend within our means and stop the monster in its tracks before we bust our seams. It feeds on just the interest, its appetite is whet. It never ever stops to rest, Tyrannosaurus debt.
And this is the U.S. Treasury. It sells Treasury bonds, bills and notes, and savings bonds to finance the debt. The U.S. government promises to pay the owner interest plus the value of each bond at a future date.
We've got to try to tame the debt and bring it down to size. To let it grow unchecked like this is certainly unwise. The debt's a monster problem that we really can't ignore. I guess we should be grateful that it's not a carnivore. We got to keep on servicing our $1 trillion pet. It's got a monster appetite, Tyrannosaurus debt. A fiscal misadventure with $1 trillion dentures, Tyrannosaurus debt.
Feeding time is all the time.
Hi, this is Cindy Williams, and you're watching TV Free Baltimore.
This is Gunhild Carling, and you are watching TV Free Baltimore. No, you are not watching. You have to watch TV Free Baltimore.
You're watching Maryland Politics here on TV Free Baltimore.
Hello, everybody. My name is Derek Sterling, and welcome to another episode of Maryland Politics. This evening, I have running for U.S. Senate, Mr. Arvin. Am I saying it right? Arvin Vora?
Yep. Thanks for having me on.
Welcome to the TV Free Studios. And, running as a libertarian, first question I'd like to ask you is how, why, and what are your expectations, and how do you feel your chances are of winning?
It's a lot of questions. So let me say this. What is it that libertarians are about? Libertarians, to understand libertarianism, you have to think about our goals. And our goals right now, my goal as a candidate, is to work towards ending the income tax and ending the welfare state. I mean completely ending the income tax and completely ending the welfare state. I want to repeal the 10F welfare. I want to repeal Medicare, Medicaid, Social Security, and cut taxes accordingly. We believe that if you earn money, that it is your money to do with whatever you want. And if you want to donate it, cool. And if you want to keep it, that's also fine. So now, what are the chances of that message getting out there? Well, the thing is, that message is electrifying people more than I've ever seen it electrify people before. Mm-hmm. I've been talking about ending the income tax, ending government schools, ending the welfare state for a long time. But only recently have I seen it catching fire in the way that it is. And so the reason that I'm running is I want those ideas to catch on fire even more here in Maryland. and so that they can spread around the country as well. I want us to be demanding a different type of government, a smaller government, or a non-existent government if it gets to that. I want our people to be saying enough of this is enough, and we want to shut it down. We want to end all these damaging programs, and we want to be free the way that we're supposed to be.
Awesome. I mean, it just sounds, your drive automatically to me, it sounds, invigorating. It sounds like you automatically know what's going wrong, or what, your perception of what's wrong right now, and what you plan to do to fix things or help fix things, because it is a long process. Well, can you tell our audience right now, who is Arvind Vohra? Who are you yourself? I mean,
Sure.
what, explain to our people who you are, outside of the politics.
Sure. I'm a small business owner. I started my own business when I was 22. It's an education business. It's a free market education business. It's not involved with the government in any way. On principle, we don't take any government money. We don't apply for any government grants. We don't accept any government grants. We believe that there is something very sacred in any kind of exchange between people. That's a voluntary exchange. And I've seen all the regulations and all the nonsense that keeps people from experiencing the wonder of entrepreneurship. And I've seen all the roadblocks that prevent people from getting the kind of education you get in the free market. Sometimes it's actually free education in the free market.
Sure.
Things like Khan Academy, or sometimes it's not free. But the key thing that I've seen in my life is that government damages people. It prevents opportunities for business. It harms education through government schools, through Common Core, both of which I want to see go. I want to see Common Core go because I think it's stupid. I want to see government schools also go because I think there is no justification of any kind in the modern era, when you have things like Khan Academy, that government should be paying for schools with our money. That is wrong. I do not believe for 1 second that the fact that you have a kid entitles you to the fruits of somebody else's labor. Right. And so I want to see that change. Oh, that's good to hear.
Yeah, that's actually an awesome point. That out of all the politicians or people just running for a political seat, I haven't heard anybody say that yet. And everybody's got a lot of good intentions based on their platform or what they intend to do or would like to do to help towards change. But I hadn't heard that one, so that's really awesome. And you're right. I mean, we all pay taxes. We understand that. Taxes come out in our, out of our paychecks, respectively. That from jobs that we work. But it seems like we're so accustomed to that money being withdrawn, and then somebody just tells us that that money's going towards this or is going towards that. But it almost seems like there should be almost like an account, from money just generated through the government. Our society has been around for a long time. Have we not accumulated funds that should be sitting, that could be put towards schools and things of that nature? And I think that's, correct me if I'm wrong.
To an extent. So I don't, if the government had extra money, I would say they should just pay back people whatever they paid in. When we talk about Social Security, my plan for Social Security is real simple. Whatever you paid in, you get that back, and then we shut down the program. You paid in $5, you get back $5. You paid in $50,000, you get back $50,000. Whatever you paid in, that's owed to you, but not a cent more. If you just came here when you're 79 years old and now you start expecting to collect Social Security, that's nonsense. That's not how it's supposed to work. When it comes to things like education, what are we talking about here? We're talking about empowerment.
That's what I'm asking.
We're talking about empowerment. We're saying, I talk to so many people. People say, poor people don't care about their kids. That's not true. I talk to so many poor people. They do care about their kids. They feel disempowered because the school board's not going to listen to them. Right. So what I want to see is no government involvement at all. No public schools, no government-funded educations, no vouchers, no charter schools, nothing other than you pay for what you want. And here's the thing. Look at how poorly somebody's treated by the state versus how well they're treated even by a low-end fast food restaurant. When people have to cater to you, even for a small amount of money, they start catering to you. They start asking, what do you want? And by ending government schools, by ending the welfare state in that way, by ending any kind of government-funded education, you're empowering people to say, if you want my money, If it might be a little bit of money, but it's my money. This is my $5. This is my $2. This is my $50, whatever. If you want it, you need to give me what I want. I am not going to tolerate something second rate ever again.
I'm amazed right now because I'm going to have to shuffle my questions around here. Only because this reason, you just basically stated, and I don't think I mentioned to everybody yet, is that you are running for U.S. Senate as a libertarian.
I am.
So what that means, and what reminded me of that, is the fact that you said, government involvement, less government involvement, whereas, conservatism, is supposed to be by the people, okay, where, liberalism, seems more like, whether they would admit it or not, seems to be a little bit more government involvement, but yet you're saying, as a libertarian, you're riding right in between those lines, to a degree where you don't
to some
want
extent, because
any government. You don't need any more government involvement, but yet government can help.
I would not say that.
Okay.
I would say government, and see, that's the key thing. If you look at between Democrats and Republicans right now for something like government schools, Democrats support government schools and Republicans also support government schools. So between that would also support government schools. Libertarians are kind of a completely different perspective.
Okay.
We are the only party, major or minor, of any kind that believes in abolishing all government schools. All government-funded education. That's where we're coming from, because we say this. We say that if you don't have that, now you have the free market instead. That means a parent with a kid can say, we can use free things like Khan Academy, Coursera, MIT OpenCourseWare. Or that parent can say, I like this, this neighborhood business down the street. And maybe I don't have a lot of money, but if they want that small amount of money, they have to give me what I want. And the difference is now you have people taking responsibility. You have people feeling empowered because they can choose to pay or not pay, because it's their money. No one's taking their money anymore.
Let me ask you this.
Okay.
Have you heard of St. Jude Hospital?
Yeah.
Okay, is that similar to what they do? You wonder how they fund everything. I mean, to be able to offer a child rehabilitation for whatever cancer or whatever illness they might be suffering from, where do they get their funding? Is this what you're talking about?
So that's a perfect example.
That's why I asked that.
Now, St. Jude's,
so
St. Jude's, it's a place that is funded by so many donations.
Okay.
And there's a big difference between tax and donations, though, because donations, those are voluntary. Those are not involuntary. And St. Jude's has to earn those donations. You know why? Because anybody can say, I'm not going to donate.
Right.
They have to earn it by being good. Now, can you imagine anyone in their right mind donating to the mess that we have of government schools right now?
You wouldn't.
No one would, because you're like, that's a train wreck. I'll donate to anybody but that.
Yeah.
And the idea that the free market, the power of the free market, is that even donations have to be earned.
Yes.
Charity has to be earned, but through effectiveness.
Sure.
And that's one of the really powerful ideas that I really see catching on in this movement right now.
And you know what? I tell you what. It's one of those things where my eyes just opened up, and I'm like, wow, why does this sound so simple, but yet it's so far, away from the general way of thinking. We're so accustomed to this side, that side, that we don't see anything on the outskirts or in between. It's either you're a Democrat or you're a Republican.
Yeah.
And you either choose one of those two sides.
And the problem is right now those two sides have become increasingly identical. You have a warmongering left and you have a warmongering right. One of the big principles that libertarians have, that I certainly have, that I plan to sponsor legislation for, is to stop being involved in the civil wars of other countries. I say bring the troops home. I say shut down all these foreign military bases. I say cut taxes accordingly. I say that we should have whatever military personnel that we need for defense and not a single person more. The military is not supposed to be a large-scale welfare jobs program. It's supposed to serve a purpose, and it should do that at the lowest cost with the fewest people possible. That's efficiency. And that's what I want to see. I don't want us involved in other countries' wars anymore. I don't think that we have any business doing that. I think it's a bad idea. It's expensive. It creates enemies. So one of the main things that I want to do is to sponsor legislation to cease all involvement in foreign wars. Bring the troops home, shut down foreign military bases, and cut taxes accordingly.
Let me ask you this. As being somebody who personally lived in Europe during portion of the 80s. I remember, okay, father being a military guy and all that, and I'm Army brat myself. There was a time where the word came throughout, all the U.S. bases and all that. They were getting ready to start shutting them down. Is this something similar to? Obviously, I'm pretty sure it wasn't a libertarian that stood up and said, "Hey, look, like you're saying now, let's get our guys home." What is that? Pretty much what you're saying? Something took effect during the '80s and moved all those bases out of Europe and across the other, other places in the world. Yeah. So is that something similar, or you still think we still have too many bases located?
I think we have far too many. We're talking about hundreds of bases. We are prepared for an essentially permanent war. We are not just preparing for that permanent war, but we're engaged in that permanent war. We're at war all the time. Nobody can tell anymore.
When we're out of a war situation.
Nobody can tell anymore. Congress hasn't bothered to declare a war anymore. We've only had these just endless, unconstitutional missions.
Excellent.
These are corrupted missions. They are non-strategic. They have no goal of any kind. They often achieve the goal. For example, one of the goals supposedly was to kill Osama bin Laden. It was achieved. But we're still over there. Why? It is because we are essentially creating a permanent warfare state that benefits military contractors and other people who are making money directly from the war.
Because it funds everything. It's just kind of like the pharmaceutical industries. You keep buying, you still have the product, people keep buying it, so you keep selling it.
Yeah, and they're trying to turn war into a chronic condition. War is not supposed to be a long-term, lifelong chronic condition.
I understand.
Sometimes I get that sometimes a thing needs to be cured. I disagreed with having a full war to kill one person. I thought it was an insane approach. I would have supported any other thing that made any sense, including just putting a bounty on his head. But even though that war was insane, it's mission accomplished. I mean, let's admit a success. Bring everyone home. Let's stop being involved in these foreign countries. And here's the thing. When we're involved in that many countries, we are generating ill will. We are paying a lot of money to make ourselves less safe. So I want to bring all the troops home. I want to shut down all of those foreign military bases. Militarily, even if you say we want to be ready for war wherever, which I don't think is necessary, you don't need bases for that. We already have aircraft carriers. But
we can do it from home.
Exactly. And we don't. So I think it's a bad idea. But even if you think it's a good idea, we don't need those bases. I want to shut all of them down. I want to cut taxes accordingly. I want to bring the troops home. I don't want to send a single young man or young woman on a mission that is corrupted, that has no strategic purpose. If somebody's going to war, I want that to be for a really good reason, not just to serve some corporate interest.
Understood. I could stay on that particular topic with you for a long time, but I will move on.
Okay.
Now, libertarians do not win elections. Bottom line. I mean,
federally,
federally,
federal elections we've had a very hard time with.
I don't know, or I can't recall any true libertarian that has won a major seat. So, I mean, why run as a libertarian? And realistically, what do you think your chances of winning are?
So let's talk about what the strategic value is, because I also serve on the Libertarian National Committee. So what is the strategic value of this? The number one thing that happens when we run for major offices is that we are essentially recruiting people, and we are letting the status quo know that we are not tolerating their stuff anymore. See, here's the thing. If you vote for Democrat or Republican, if you can vote, I mean, you can, many people do. You vote for Democrat or Republican, you're telling them, keep on doing what you're doing. When you vote for a Libertarian, you are telling them in no uncertain terms, you're basically saying to the Democrats and Republicans, you have neither my approval nor my permission to keep growing or maintaining big government. Shrink it now. That's what you're telling them. And so strategically, libertarians don't have to get 51% of the vote. If we get 1% of the vote, that changes a lot of things. If we get 2%, that changes more things. If we beat the spread between the Democrats and Republicans, that increases the significance. And that's how we strategically shift politics.
You can still affect.
Exactly.
You can still affect elections.
Exactly.
Just by being there, adding input, and being that middle ground.
Exactly.
I understand. So there's no backing out. If you back out, then like you said, it's just you're right back to the regular ones and twos. But you have to be in there to show that there's a different perspective, and what we're used to isn't working. It's proven that it's becoming ineffective.
And let's look at their last presidential election, right? You had Gary Johnson, who got a record number of votes, 4 times as many as the previous record, which was just set a few years ago, right? The cycle right before that. That is a trend that is happening. We are seeing that kind of growth in numbers, in ideas. People. I've talked to so many people, and just as socially, just as friends.
Sure.
And been so surprised when I found out that they, these people who don't in any way seem like what I would associate with a libertarian, voting libertarian, because they're saying, I was going to vote my conscience. I am not going to vote for somebody that I would not stand next to on stage. I'm not going to vote for somebody whose values I don't respect. It doesn't matter if I'm the only person doing the right thing, I'm going to do the right thing. And that to me is a powerful testament to democracy, to individual conscience, and to individual freedom.
Let me ask you this real quick, and you can be brief with it. You can take your time with it. The election of Donald Trump. Is that a sign? Is that a positive sign, I should say, towards the uprise of the libertarian movement because of such a kind of majority victory for him over somebody who was a sound politician at the time?
Yeah. To me, a lot of people, when they were voting for Trump, did the wrong thing for the right reason. They wanted somebody who was going to smash up the status quo. They wanted somebody who was going to pull us out of NATO. That's a major thing. I believe the U.S. needs to be out of NATO. It is just welfare for Europe. It is just paying for their defense so they can waste more of their citizens' money on their welfare programs. I say leave NATO, let Europe pay for its own defense. These are ideas that Trump put forth. I have some experience in politics. I knew he was lying. I told everyone he was lying. I was like, he's lying. And he was lying.
He was lying.
But the thing is, that's what people were voting for. People were voting to leave NATO. People were voting to dismantle the status quo. People were voting, people were voting to bring the troops home. That's what he said he was going to do. He didn't do it because he was lying, but that shows that's what people wanted. Now they've tried it. They've tried it with somebody who, was lying about it. Now I'm hoping that they'll keep on wanting the right thing and then vote for the people who are going to actually do it instead of lie about it.
And it's obvious. It's obvious, and that's the crazy thing about politics. And this is what baffles me about how people can, as part of the game, almost like our judicial system, where you have the defense, and then you have basically somebody who is the one that's going to, the prosecutor, who's the one that's trying to, put all your bads out there. Everybody collectively knows just about everything, and yet some of it you have to keep hidden. Some of it you reveal, and there's client privilege or whatever it's called, personal confidential stuff.
Yeah.
It seems to be the same way with politics. They say stuff and they're blatantly lying.
Yeah.
And certain people like yourself who are experienced in the political atmosphere knows that.
Yeah.
But yet you look at it, and while you were listening to that individual say it, you're like, wow, way to go. Good platform. Because you have to. You almost have to understand what's happening, because that's just part of the way it's done.
Yeah.
It's the way it's done. Would you agree with that?
Here's the thing. This is something that I learned the hard way, right? In 2008, I voted for Obama. I'd always voted Libertarian.
So did I.
But I saw someone that was willing to be honest and open. I thought maybe this is a guy who's going to scale back or end the war on drugs. I thought he was going to do things differently. I didn't realize he was lying. Then I found out he was lying, and then I saw all the things. When I get lied to, when I get tricked, I go through it. So I went through his videos to see what could I have seen, and in retrospect, it was obvious. Hindsight is always 2020.
2020.
So in 2016, there was a lot of things that Trump was saying that I thought were exciting. Leaving NATO, I think, is an excellent idea. But I knew he was lying this time. You know, fool me once, shame on you, but I'm not going to get fooled that second time, right?
Sir.
And so I think that's an area that people need to get to say, listen, these status quo parties are only going to give us pro-welfare state, pro-warfare state, pro-income tax politicians. If you want something that's going to fearlessly dismantle government, end the income tax, get government out of schools, get government out of charity, get government out of everything, that's only going to be libertarians. That's going to be the Libertarian Party. No one else is going to do it.
Well, let me ask you this, Arvin. If elected as a libertarian, what is the first piece of legislation that you will be focused on changing, in favor of the people?
Ending the income tax. Completely ending it and having government downsized accordingly. Here's the thing. Today, we could cut spending just to 1992 levels. Cut government spending to 1992 levels and abolish the income tax. We don't have to go back to 1776. I would prefer to bring it to 1776 levels. We could just go to 1992. By the way, we still had roads back then. We could go just to that level and end the income tax. So my first order of business is to slash the welfare state, get rid of these unnecessary departments, get rid of things like the FDA, get rid of things like the Department of Agriculture, get rid of all these departments, fire all the people working there, and end the income tax. That is my #1 goal.
It sounds fabulous. I wish you the best on your venture. You seem like you're definitely determined to make these changes, and one way or another, something positive is going to come out of it. Thanks for watching this episode of Maryland Politics, everybody. I've had the gracious presence of Mr. Arvin Vohra, who is running for the United States Senate as a libertarian. Thank you for being my guest this evening here at TV Free Studios in Baltimore. Appreciate that.
Thanks for having me on. And if you want to learn more about my campaign, please go to votevohra.com. That's the word vote, followed by a VOHRA.com.
You're watching Maryland Politics here on TV Free Baltimore.
Hey, Ben Gillette here. Being a libertarian means being skeptical of power. Skeptical there's one way to do things. Is there going to be one way of living that's going to make you, Justin Bieber, Pat Robertson, Marilyn Manson, Hillary Clinton, me, and your Aunt Olga all equally happy? It all comes down to this. Maybe I know the best way to live my life, but wow, I sure don't know the best way to live yours. So why not err on the side of more freedom, respect for what makes us different? If you think a little bit like I do and want to learn more, go to libertarianism.org. We've got podcasts and videos, original source material, and essays all about the idea of using a little more liberty. Libertarianism.org. Be just like me.
You're watching Maryland Politics here on TV Free Baltimore.
Hello, this is Paul Stefan, and this is another edition of TV Free Baltimore's Maryland Politics. And tonight, our guest is Jason Wunder, who is the Libertarian candidate for the House of Representatives in Maryland's District 8. Welcome, Jason.
Thank you, Paul. Thank you for having me.
It's terrific to have you. Now, you are local, right?
Yes, I live in the 8th District.
Were you
I live
born
in
in
Carroll
Maryland?
County, Maryland.
Were you born
Yes,
in Maryland?
born and raised, and I only moved when I got married, probably about 2 miles from my home.
Really? So were you? That was also still in Carroll County? Or?
Yes, yes.
Terrific. So sometimes, because congressional districts, you don't have to live in the district you
Yeah,
represent.
the Democrats are doing that right now with, I think his name's David Tyrone. I think he lives in Maryland's 8th, but was running for 6th.
So that's I'm more comfortable with people know the people they represent. So.
Yeah, well, it's obvious. Yeah, I believe that should be a stipulation.
Well, we'll see about that. Now, what is your background?
I'm a paramedic. I work for a private company which contracts with Johns Hopkins Hospital.
Okay. All right. And what's your background, let's say, for running for office?
So I've always been interested in politics, even at a young age. I actually was a big fan of Alan Keyes because he cut taxes when I was in elementary school.
Okay.
And when I became a libertarian, I started working for the Sean Quinn for Governor campaign for his first run. And I helped him out with some various things. And then I was asked to run last election. And I offered to run for this election as well, Maryland's 8th.
And now, were you, I guess, politically before a declared libertarian, were you a member of any other party?
Yes. So I was registered an independent when I became 18, but I was a Democrat. I voted for Al Gore and John Kerry. I'm very anti-war. And then I became more involved in politics and learned more, and I realized that even though I was anti-war, I was way more conservative. So then I switched and started voting Republican and registered Republican and voted for John McCain and Mitt Romney. But towards the end of Mitt Romney's run, I became more and more libertarian. I got tired of all the nonsense of politics.
Mm-hmm. So where did you pick up your information on libertarianism, or what is libertarianism? I'm not going to ask you what that is right now, but I'm just saying, where did you find out about the libertarian philosophy?
I always called myself a conservative libertarian. And you read things online, you see videos, books. Mm-hmm. John Stossel was actually a big influence on me becoming a full-blown libertarian because of watching his TV show on Fox Business.
Oh, okay. That's interesting. And so the guess would be for me to say, why be a libertarian as opposed to a member of another party as far as a candidate?
Well, I just don't agree with Republicans or Democrats. I believe a little bit of each, but I think we need more choices. I actually think we need more than just libertarians being a serious candidates. I think Green Party candidates need to be heavily considered. I also think that we should allow socialists, communists, we should have all ideas out there for people to pick from. Choice is always better.
Well, there you go. I think that's one of the principal tenets of libertarianism is choice and
personal choice, personal responsibility.
Yeah, personal freedom, all of those things. Now, let me see. So you covered that for me. When you ran for the congressional seat 2 years ago, is that the first time you ever ran for a political office?
Yes.
It was. And it seemed like, from what I saw at the time, you polled about 7,000 votes.
Roughly 2%.
2% of the vote. And that even the Green Party candidate got more votes than you did.
Yeah, I think she got somewhere 10 or 12,000.
Well, they called whatever it was. I thought it was 3.1%, but it might not have been. Might have been a little less. But so what happened there? Because I know we had a discussion beforehand with our director here, and he said he thought that usually libertarians outpoll the Green Party candidates.
I'd have to look at the history of Maryland's 8th, but I also think that it's a heavily Democrat area, and people probably got tired of establishment and went Green Party. And I think her name was Nancy Wallace. She's actually really nice. And if you were going to vote for somebody, if I was going to vote, I probably would have voted for her because I think she's one of the most genuine people I've ever met, especially she talks the talk.
Okay. So really what you should say is if people don't vote, if they didn't have voted for you, you should vote for her.
I personally would have, yes. Okay. If I didn't vote for myself, I probably would have considered her, even though we disagree on a lot. But I don't like to tell people how to vote. I think you have to vote your conscience. You're the one that lays your head down at night.
Now, let's see. With that, now the last the last time you ran, were there debates or?
Yes, I was invited to one debate, a forum, at Frederick. I was in Thurmont, I believe.
Okay. And she was there also?
Mm-hmm. Okay. But I had met her at a couple other events.
Oh, okay, okay. Because I think part of it too is, again, like I said, voters don't often know what a libertarian is or what they stand for, where they can have a really quick buzzword, oh, Green Party, that means save the environment.
Mm-hmm.
And so if they're just going to have that very basic concept, you could see why they would vote Green as opposed to Libertarian. So I would say to you, what can you do or your party can do, put out there what the Libertarians stand for and what people should know about you?
I think we need to look more professional and act more professional. I think people, when they hear libertarian, they think we're anarchists that smoke weed, and that's all we're concerned about, which cannot be further from the truth.
Okay.
And people don't take us seriously.
Well, that's part of us saying how to take you seriously. It's sort of, I don't know, look, be more professional. Are you saying that most libertarian candidates have not?
I think some. I think some have been a little bit of an embarrassment to the party.
Okay. Because, I mean, the one gentleman who was here was very professional, I thought.
Kevin?
Kevin, yes.
Kevin, yes. I think Kevin is a fantastic candidate for the 6th. I think he's a great person. He's a great speaker. He dresses well.
Yes, he does. And he had told us that he's impressed the other parties, whereas Republican representatives and Democratic representatives say, you really don't have much chance as a libertarian candidate, so why don't you come over and be our candidate for something, some year? You know, so that he impresses the other parties. So he's a standard that maybe you're talking about that everybody else ought to
I
get
would
in
say
line.
very much so, yes.
Yeah.
I've spoken to him many times. We did an event recently. He invited me to, and I just think, I think he's the ideal candidate, just appearance-wise. We agree on most things, but appearance-wise.
And he's very intelligent. He tells me he does extensive research. He says if he's going to vote on an issue, he will study it thoroughly before he gives his opinion, which is also a good guy to have. Now, with the this current election, people might say, like I was talking about, libertarians having such a low profile, you know, they would say, okay, well, why bother? Why run if you know you're going to lose? Why run if you're only going to pull 2%?
Why not?
Okay.
Don't that 2% deserve a voice to be heard?
Oh, that's true.
I think everybody deserves a voice to be heard, even if you pull 0.01%. I think we need to get the message out more. 2% is not going to do much, but 2% this year, 3% next year.
It's an uphill battle because, you know, and why, let's say, because that was your first time you ran for anything, why jump right up to, like, say, I'm running for the House of Representatives in the United States Congress, as opposed to, let's say, a local seat or a state seat, you know, get your name known?
Just the opportunity presented itself. I offered, so.
And they put you up there for that. And so that's why Congress. Yeah. And part of that would say, what could you do in Congress as a libertarian? Because I don't think a libertarian's ever been elected to the United States Congress.
Not in the name. You have libertarian-esque, you know.
People
Justin Amash, Rand Paul is libertarian-esque, Ron Paul is libertarian, but they all were Republicans.
Right. But, of course, not declared because, again, there's no place in the House or the Senate for them, I guess. And so that's why I would say it's an uphill battle. And how do you have strategies of where you think of getting people to be more aware? You said just be more professional?
I think Facebook videos are great. I think just getting small little videos out there for people to see. Everyone's on their phone. They flip it open. I think that's a way. Being more professional, being clear with our ideas and our messages. A lot of people ask me if I'm being an anarchist. Am I against laws? Which is no.
And total anarchy, eternal freedom. That's what they think sometimes.
Yep. And I think we just have to do better about looking the part and getting the message out there.
Well, that's good. Now, part of it is a reading, and this was, I think, was careful. People should look at your Facebook page at least, is that you put out, you know, this is, you know, the Republican view, this Democrat view, this is a libertarian view, or this is the conservative This
It's
is
a
the
quick
liberal-
rundown of a nice, just to kind of give people an idea what they believe and a couple
Right.
of hard points to look at.
boxes and things. That was interesting. Some
Nice
of
and simple.
the concepts and looking at the libertarian positions, they do look a little radical, I'd say. Like I know the first thing is, you can tell me a little about that one. You said about marriage and talking about you shouldn't give your money or necessarily give your money to the state. Or,
Well, yeah, with marriage, you know, I don't understand why the government has to be involved and regulate marriage. You know, it's a religious institution. So it should be, if anything, regulated by religion. But I would be, if two people want to get married, three people, somebody in a chair want to get married, that's their own business. It's not my business. As long as they're not bothering anyone and as everybody is consenting.
You're saying, like, for example, you shouldn't have to register with your county or...
Nope. When I got married, I had to go and pay a $35 fee for a license and be approved by Martin O'Malley to get married. So I don't understand that at all.
Well, on the converse, and I'll ask you about this one because it's a personal story, is now same thing for now divorce, you see. And it's the same thing because my story, just very quickly, is I haven't seen my second wife for more than 10 years. And I can get some money from the federal government if I can prove that we're divorced. But they said to file for divorce will cost me $165 for somebody to stamp a paper.
That's...
And would you say the libertarians would also say get rid of that fee?
Oh, absolutely. But if you don't have to apply for a marriage license, you don't have to apply for a divorce.
Well, that's true. So you're right. It's both. They've made it.
I think it's ridiculous. It's just a money scheme. It's to control people. It's to take more money out of their pocket. It's a tax. It's a marriage tax.
I mean, I'm just trying to think along those lines with you, because another one I was thinking of today is like with driving and a driver's license, that when, even if you're driving well and a policeman happens to pull you over and you're not driving with a license or a suspended license, you go to jail. Because I saw it in the paper today, some guy was put in an Anne Arundel County jail for 10 days, and somehow in there he got like a dose of heroin or something that killed him. And he was only there for a suspended license. And again, to me, it's a state institution where they regulate, can you drive? Okay, but as far as, I don't think there should be something attached that says you go to jail, after they've signed off that you could do it, to say that you got to pay every so many years for a new license, and you go to jail if,
Well, the difference with that would be is that the guy was not allowed to operate a motor vehicle on the road. He could have endangered people. He could have. It depends on what he was suspended for.
Yeah, that's what we don't.
That's a little bit of a difference to me than getting married, because my marriage doesn't affect you at all.
Well, that's right. It's like, as long as it's more or less what you'd say. I don't know if the founding fathers said that or not, but it's like everybody should have personal freedom and personal choice as long as it doesn't impinge on somebody else.
If it doesn't affect my freedom or my life, absolutely.
Right. Now, if you study, I don't know if you took political science or anything in college, but I also just finished reading about Patrick Henry. And you should read that biography, because he comes across as a very libertarian person, always talking about being a servant of the people. He was against the passage of the U.S. Constitution, and mostly because of taxation issues. He said the federal government should not have the power to tax local states. He said we should have the opportunity to raise our own taxes, and at some point we fail for whatever our quota is to the federal government, then the government can intervene, but the government just can't impose without our say-so, which is the same way of, we wanted to break from England. No taxation without representation. And he was saying he would never want to vote for the American Constitution because of that.
Okay. That's interesting. I'll have to look into that.
Yeah, and other things too. He's very much one I just finished. It was by a gentleman named John Kukla.
Okay.
And so that's something there. Now let's get into a little bit about the issues I saw. I think it was from your 2016 campaign, and see if they are still relevant. You talk about congressional salaries and term limits. Why don't you tell us about that?
Well, I think it's ridiculous that a representative makes somewhat of more than three times what the person they represent makes on average. So the average person makes about $56,000 a year. That's the national median income. Congressman makes $174,000. I think that's outrageous. I will only accept a national median income of $56,000. I will not accept the rest. Now, there's going to be loopholes to that, but I will sign and notarize a form later on and post it on my website showing that I will adhere to that, a contract, a binding contract.
Okay.
And the term limits, I would do away with. Personally, I would do away with all term limits. You would run one single 2-year term. That's what I would hope to accomplish when I finally left Congress. But I will only serve one single 2-year term. I will not seek re-election.
But you're saying, and I think it was on that post, there are no term limits now for a lot of things. But you're saying you would put term limits on.
I would put forth as many bills as I could to add term limits.
Okay. And you would only serve that one term.
Single term. I will not seek re-election under no circumstance, will I?
And in the money situation with the salary, it also said something about you would ask Congress to reduce their salaries to that $56,000.
Yes, that will be another bill that I will try and which will be tough to get people to vote for a pay decrease.
Never happened.
Probably not, but I will fight for it. I will filibuster as much as I can, and I will only accept $56,000.
Okay, because I was going to say, if the remainder of that money, which is maybe $123,000, what would you do with that? I would accept it and then give it to someone.
It would be given back to the people of Maryland's 8th. I'd have to figure out some way.
To do that.
Maybe to education, maybe to a charity of some sort, but I would not accept a tax write-off for it. It would just be somehow given out.
Well, that's good. I wanted you to clarify that because I didn't see that on the web's page. Because you could think of, oh yeah, well Congress says, well we're going to save $123 on this gentleman, so we'll put it back in the general fund and
it'll come back to Maryland's 8th. It'll go back to Maryland's 8th. Somehow I will come up with.
You would make sure your district got that.
Yes.
Okay. And then also, let me see. There would be something about eliminating eminent domain.
The idea that the state can take your property against your will for the greater good.
Yeah.
I don't like that idea. Your property is yours.
And you said strengthen personal ownership rights. Can you say a little bit more about that?
Well, when you have things when somebody's arrested and you can, forfeit, they can seize their goods without their property without actually being convicted. Civil asset forfeiture, I think is what it's called. I would do away with things of that nature.
Oh, you would?
You're not found guilty till you're found guilty. You're innocent until proven guilty. But strengthen also property rights. I would like to fight for stronger gun rights.
Okay, I mean, I'll go back a little bit when you talk about, the thing about strengthening the personal ownership. Also, what about police, being able to just sometimes come into your homes without a warrant or...
No, that's ridiculous.
Search and seizure, those kind of things.
Yep. Fourth Amendment is clear. Get an individual warrant.
And along with that, you seem to be against our troops being all over the world.
How many military bases do we have? Do you know?
No, I don't.
Take a guess.
Where, you mean around the world? I have no idea. 500 maybe?
756, I believe, is the number.
Okay, so...
And that's ridiculous.
Yeah, okay.
Absolutely ridiculous. That we have 700 bases around the world. So much money is spent occupying other countries.
And you have made a claim down that page. You would bring them all home.
I would work to bring them home, yes.
So we would have no presence in any country. Just defense of the United States only.
Yes. And a lot of people believe libertarians are anti-military, and that's not true. We're just very big on defense, bringing our troops home, strengthening our defense.
Okay, so you are then in favor of, let's say, homeland security?
No.
You're not?
No, I think I can understand why people put those kind of agencies forward. I don't think anybody goes at it for a negative reason, but I think it's just been abused, and I think they've trampled on people's rights, privacy rights, constitutional rights, everything.
Now, go back to one that you mentioned. What is, with the positions today, is like everybody's all up in arms about all these school shootings and how easy it is for younger people to get access to guns or daddy's gun or whatever. What is your position on the limit of guns?
What do you mean the limit of guns?
Well, I guess
like
in
the
this
types
country,
of
like
guns?
I mean, different types of guns for one. Like they say, They say, oh, no bump stocks and no
Okay.
assault rifles and
Well, we
more
can
stricter
we can
ways.
start with the term assault rifle.
Okay.
Are you familiar with an AR-15?
No, I'm not familiar with guns at all.
Do you know what AR stands for in AR-15?
What does that mean? Tell us.
Armor light. It's actually a trademark. It's not assault rifle.
Okay.
The assault rifle was actually designed by the Nazis towards the end of World War II. The Sturmgewehr 1944 was the first termed assault rifle. Hitler actually named it the Storm rifle. It was a fully automatic gun. We do not have assault rifles in this country for public use. So AR-15 is Armor Light Model 15. That was designed towards the end of the Korean War, and it was just a lighter weight, smaller caliber round. So it's no more deadly than a regular wood stock 5.56 round. It's a semi-automatic, one trigger, one pull of the trigger, one round.
Okay. So are there any guns you would be in favor of banning or restricting?
No.
None?
None.
So you believe in the Second Amendment rights that
Yes,
people have?
absolutely.
Right to bear arms and defend your home.
As an NRA life member, I am a very big advocate for the Second Amendment.
Okay, and this is a position that most libertarians would hold?
I say a fair amount, yes.
Oh, okay.
Some would have the government intervene a little bit.
Okay. Because I have not heard what the libertarian policy was on guns, so it's good to have you clarify that for me. What about immigration? What's your stand on immigration?
I actually used to be, I'm very much anti-wall. I think most people that have a strong viewpoint on immigration are generally anti-wall. I don't think it would...
Okay, not for the wall.
Yeah, I think the wall is ridiculous. I've become more and more open border with Trump being elected.
Okay.
And one of the things that turned me to that was Ron Paul saying, don't think of a wall as keeping people out. Think of it as keeping people in. So I actually advocate more for an open border.
Okay.
And I think immigration is fantastic. I mean, we get so many great products and people that come to this country that work hard and bring ideas. I think it's fantastic.
So what then, the biggest thing that's been on the immigration table, and since Trump's been in office, is DACA. And what is your position on DACA?
Well, with DACA, I do away with all the immigrants. I just open the borders, allow people to come into this country at will. You know, they work. If you commit a crime, you'll serve time. So I hate the idea of saying amnesty and just allowing people to stay here and not pay a penalty, but I don't think there's a penalty that you can administer. So I would just open the borders and allow people to come and go as they please.
What about
free movement of people?
Then illegal immigrants who stay in this country and never become citizens?
I mean, what is the crime that they're committing? They come to this country, they work hard. I think the biggest issue people have with that is it comes down to taxes and welfare programs, which I understand. You know, it's not fair somebody comes here and doesn't pay taxes but receives welfare, receives money from the state. But if you eliminate the taxes and the welfare programs, people that come here will come here to work. They won't come here to reap any benefits.
Well, the interesting thing is, because I'm a student of history, and there was something I read today, that this day in history, in 1898, there was a case in the United States Supreme Court of a Chinese gentleman and trying to have his citizenship in this country. They said his parents were immigrants, but because he was born in this country, he was a U.S. citizen just because he was born here. And Trump has talked about with the DACA thing, or with the children of the immigrants, that they should go back too with their parents, but they were born in America. And I've never really understood that. They may not be citizens, but they were born here. They weren't asked to be born here. And they've got their roots here. They've got their friends maybe in their 20s, 25 years old, 30 years old. They have their jobs. They have their families here now. And so I would say I would be against shipping them back.
I'd say against shipping anybody back.
Anybody.
As long as you're not
a
criminal and you
so
cause no harm to anybody. Okay,
well,
my father was a steam fitter.
Oh, okay.
He's now retired, and he worked on a lot of job sites with young men from Mexico, and he said they work hard, they're very polite. So why are we trying to ship those people out?
Okay.
We have many other things to worry about in this country without somebody coming here to work hard.
What about your position then on taxes?
I would
give you that briefly.
Yes, I would eliminate every tax. I personally would only want to have a property tax, a small property tax that would go to the state. And I actually think the federal government should only provide things such as a military and small positions like funding the president's salary, Secret Service, those kind of. So I think that the states should pay a tax to the federal government every year, and then the state can collect the tax however they want. I would advocate for only property tax, only.
Oh, okay. I mean, what do you feel about a flat tax?
The only thing I don't like it is you create a black market. Wait, are you talking about like a sales tax or a flat
I'm just
percent
the
of
flat,
income
the
tax?
flat tax, flat
For income tax?
Yeah, flat.
No, I would do away with that because
Do
I
away with
think
that too.
Yeah, because some of the issues that we have is people avoiding paying taxes by getting jobs and working under the table. So why is that illegal? They're still working, they're contributing.
And a lot of the politicians have come in here and also have had at candidate forums. They bring up a lot the opioid crisis. What is your position about that or strategies for that?
Well, I don't condone somebody doing drugs. Naturally, I don't do it. It's my personal choice. But I think you put in your body is your own business. And I think that we treat it too much as an illegal issue and lock people up, and that does not help them. I think that we would do much better to serve the people by treating it like a health issue.
Okay. So we are doing better, you think, with a lot of the states, including Maryland, beginning to or actually legalizing the use of marijuana.
Yeah. I think it's much better.
Or
I think
decriminalizing is a better way of putting it.
Yes, I use the word decriminalize because it upsets people a little bit less.
Yes, I would think that's why I changed the terminology too for you. But now what we want to do is, because I'm sure you want to get elected in the 8th District. So this camera over here is your camera, and please just talk in the camera for a few minutes and tell people why they should vote for you.
Well, the reason you should vote for me is I will work for you. I believe that you are my employer. As a representative, you should have access to me any and all times. That's why I give out things such as my personal cell phone number. My number is 410-916-5805. That's why I will also not accept a full salary of $174,000. It's actually a pay cut for me to go to Congress. I make on average about $72,000, and I will only accept $56,000. I will work for you. I will fight for your rights, and I will have complete transparency. Any and all bills that I put forth or vote on will be open on my website for you to read, and you can call and give me your opinion at any time.
Okay, and also now follow up with, you gave your phone number, but give the rest of your contact information, please.
My email is jasenwunder@outlook.com if you prefer to contact me by email. You can also go to my website, jasenwunder.org, and you can also contact me. All of my information's up there.
Okay, terrific. And we want to thank you for coming in.
Thank you for having me. It was a pleasure.
And we might have you back because it's a long way to November, and since you don't have to worry about a primary.
A little easy in the beginning.
You get the run, but then at least after the dust settles on June 26th, at least you know who your opponents are going to be.
Yes.
And hopefully they won't lock you out. Because I've heard other libertarians, when I ask you about the candidate forum in 16, that a lot of times they're not invited to candidate forums. They're not invited to debates.
In the beginning, I wasn't invited to a couple of events. It was Democrat and Republican only.
That's why we want to make sure that people have their voices through places like here on TV Free Baltimore.
Absolutely.
So we could have you back closer, because I think it'd be great when we're closer to election to have our viewers be reminded of
I
the
will come back
candidates
anytime you ask.
and their positions. So thank you again.
Thank you.
All right. And well, ladies and gentlemen, that's another edition of TV Free Baltimore's Maryland Politics, where we hope to give you a glimpse of and enlighten you something about candidates that the mainstream media just will not give a chance to be heard. So until the next edition, this is Paul Stefan saying farewell.
You're watching Maryland Politics here on TV Free Baltimore.
We also gave those who wished to destroy space to do that as well. We also gave those who wished to destroy space to do that as well. We also gave those who wished to destroy space to do that as well. We also gave those who wished to destroy space to do that as well. We also gave those who wished to destroy space to do that as well.
If you want change, if you want these streets cleaned up, if you want this heroin really attacked and taken care of, if you want this Section 8 housing abolished or reduced, if you want jobs coming to this county, if you want to see a better education system that's accountable to students and to the parents, if you want to see real change, and if you want to see this county to become the best county in the United States of America, then I'm your guy.
I run an educational media company. We produce 5-minute videos about different topics we believe that the world should be aware of. We produce videos about history, political science, just anything that we believe would make a person whole and more knowledgeable and savvy in this world.
About 35 PragerU videos are currently restricted.
When we first realized that our videos were being restricted, there were about 15 videos that were restricted, and that was a year and a half ago. And since then, not only has the issue not been resolved, there's actually been 20 more videos restricted. Currently, it's closer to 40 videos that are being restricted. And after nothing really happening for weeks and weeks, we kept pressing them, and then they eventually told us, well, after reviewing your videos, we determined they're not appropriate for a young audience, which was really troubling to us at PragerU, because if you've seen any of our videos, they're very educational and they're very appropriate for a young audience.
They have placed our videos on their restricted list. That means that it can't be viewed in libraries, in schools, or any home that filters out pornography, for example. Cannot be seen in any of those places. Our videos are as innocent as exists on the internet. 4 Pulitzer Prize winners, professors from Stanford, MIT, Harvard, Yale, and they still said inappropriate, but we still don't understand why.
You think when you Google something, everything on that subject comes up. I mean, it's in their mission statement. They say we organize the information of the world and make it universally accessible to all. They don't do that because they don't make ours accessible.
When I learned YouTube had been denying access to its platform to PragerU's videos, I said, I think the only way you're going to get honest answers and gain the access that the First Amendment would require is if, in fact, you start getting people through discovery in a lawsuit.
I almost feel like we're being bullied because being silenced is such a frustrating feeling. This is not just about PragerU being silenced. This is about another point of view that is being silenced. Tomorrow it's going to be your point of view that's being silenced. Is Google the one who gets to decide what everybody gets to watch?
Guns, the loud killer. Or, why you should support gun control and why the only people who don't want restrictions on the Second Amendment are child-killing right-wing bigots.
Look, I believe just as much as the next guy in protecting our children, but gun restrictions have proven to be ineffective. In the words of Ben Franklin, those who would trade safety for liberty deserve neither and will lose both.
Ben Franklin was a brainwashed NRA bigot. Plus, if the Founding Fathers were so smart, how come they're dead? Gun violence, that's why. Did you hear about the most recent mass shooting? Let me stand on graves and manipulate your emotions for a moment. The shooting was done with an AR-15, also known as the ghost gun. Called that because it turns people into ghosts. The AR-15 ghost gun has a 2 trillion round clip, fires 500,000 bullets per microsecond, and if you think that's bad, you haven't even heard about the bullet button. One press of that sucker and you unlock the cheat code for unlimited ammo and invincibility. Even worse, Free AR-15s are being distributed with every pre-order of Call of Duty, and AR-15 ghost guns are being delivered to mental health facilities by the NRA as part of their Kill Children program.
The preceding information may be entirely untrue.
We need to do something about automatic weaponry.
Actually, fully automatic weapons are illegal and have been illegal for many years, and most crime isn't committed with AR-15s, it's handguns.
Plus, violent crime has been decreasing for years. And almost all of gun violence is the product of gang violence in leftist-run cities. The likelihood of actually being killed in a mass shooting is extremely low. Extremely low? Have you not heard there were 355 mass shootings in the U.S. this year? 355? That's ludicrous. Who would believe that? Well, NPR, PBS, HuffPo, Vox, Washington Post, New York Times, MSNBC, and CBS believe it. Where did they get this information? From Reddit, so you know it's trustworthy. The info came from a subreddit which was turned into a website called MassShootingTracker.org. Take a look at these terrible shootings. Oh, and almost half of them, not a single person died. It's almost like they weren't actually mass shootings. Wow, it looks like America has the safest mass shootings in the world. In fact, our mass shootings are so safe that we're willing to call 3 or more people being shot with a BB gun a mass shooting. In the US, there have been 14 trillion mass shootings in the last half hour. But it doesn't have to be that way. Look at Australia. Australia is a land where everything is trying to kill you. Except guns, of course, because they got rid of them. Huzzah for Australia, a country which saw a plummet in violence after its gun ban. Ignore the fact that this is a continuing trend in which gun violence in Australia was decreasing at an identical rate before guns were banned. And seriously, who needs an AR-15 for hunting? Or self-defense? A simple handgun works. You don't need a ghost gun.
Well, actually, the AR-15 is one of the most popular hunting rifles, and they're great for home defense, too. Not only that, but inner-city shop owners especially need AR-15s to protect their stores and families in case of riots when journalists irresponsibly rile up racial tensions.
Ugh, it's justified outrage. Get over it.
Look, not only are you losing the arguments on home defense and hunting, but even if you weren't, the Second Amendment isn't about those things. It's about the ability to rebel against tyranny.
That's paranoid and insane. The government will never become tyrannical.
What do you think of Donald Trump?
He's literally Hitler. He wants to put Muslims and women in FEMA camps. The Constitution was talking about the militia, by the way, not the people. And militia translates to government military.
What? No, it doesn't. The people are the militia. And why would any government need to give itself the right to own guns in a founding document?
I'm done with this conversation, you right-wing, pro-NRA, anti-child, anti-woman, death-loving bigot. You may have been taken in by these pro-violence hate facts, but I have enough faith in the public to trust that they will believe the objective and logical truths I propose. Guns are icky. The government was giving itself the right to own guns with the Second Amendment. AR-15s are useless for home defense and hunting, but are also the most dangerous and effective killing machines ever created. Governments never become tyrannical. Trump is Hitler, and if he wins, our government will become tyrannical. And if by some stretch you're able to poke holes in any of these airtight arguments, get ready for me to fall back on this. The Constitution is a living document, which means it says whatever I want it to say. The NRA disagrees. They think the Constitution is dead. Why? Because they shot it, that's why. But it survived. The question is, will our children survive?
Hey guys, it's Freedom Tunes. Thanks so much for watching. If you like watching leftist nonsense get destroyed and made fun of in animated form, subscribe on YouTube and like us on Facebook. If you really like watching leftist nonsense get destroyed, donate on Patreon to help me make more cartoons. Thank you so much.
In all of freedom's history, there has never been an organization quite like the National Rifle Association of America. No other people are so alert, so vigilant, so unafraid to take a stand and go out and fight for what's good and right. We, the people of the National Rifle Association, represent the very best of America's strength and of America's character.
You're watching TV Free Baltimore.
My name is Bob Cockey, and I need your help. I'm running for the state delegate seat in the Maryland 12th Legislative District. I'm not a politician, and I'm not a lawyer. Annapolis has enough of those. It's time that we separate and put party politics aside and work as one big team. We've got some serious problems facing us. I'm not going to sit here and tell you that I'm against crime, I'm against high taxes, I'm against the opioid problem. Of course I am, but they're just catchphrases for other politicians. What I want to tell you is that on February the 9th I got up, I grabbed a tie and a jacket and I put it on. My wife said, "Where are you going, Bob?" I said, "I'm going to go apply for a job." She said, "What?" I said, "Yeah." She said, "Where?" I said, "Annapolis." This is a true story, by the way. I'm not making this up. She said, what job are you going to apply for?" I said, "I'm going to apply for the House of Delegates." I said, "Enough is enough. I'm tired of sitting back watching. I'm going to take part in this." She says, "You don't have a chance, Bob." I said, "Well, we'll see. We'll see." What I want to tell you is we have to run our government like you run your household. We have a budget. We have to stick to it. We just can't keep raising taxes. I know what it's like as a small businessman. We have a flat tire the same day your gas and electric bill comes in. When the governor says we need an inspector general to see where the money's going into Baltimore City, he's 100% right. By being smart stewards of the money that we have, we can all have new schools. We can have programs to help children and adults with special needs. I guess I might want to say that I'm on a platform of a level playing field. And I don't just mean race. I don't just mean religious backgrounds. I'm talking about a level playing field in every section. What's good for Glenelg and Howard County is good for Elk Ridge. What's good in Towson is also good for Lansdowne. We all pay the same taxes. We should all reap the same benefits. 20 to 30% cost overruns in government contracts, whether it's in a school system, whether it's in building a road, has become a common everyday practice. Another thing we have to watch out for is, I spent all day in Annapolis a couple of weeks ago. They were trying to get a bill through called the SAFE Act, and that was just a disguise to make Maryland a sanctuary state. Listen, I'm not against immigrants. This country was built on immigrants. But what I am in favor of is legal immigrants, and it's not fair to the immigrants that came here through the legal process. Our immigrants built this country, and they're still a big part of what goes on in this country. America is a great country, and that's why everybody wants to come here. But we have to pay attention to what's going on. We need to decide who our real heroes are, and by smart financial responsibility, we can pay our teachers, our firefighters, and our policemen what they deserve. They're our real heroes, not somebody that catches the ball. Let's get real with this, okay? I'm not just new to this area. The Cockey family came to Maryland in 1676. I've lived in the 12th District for over 32 years. I've umpired Little League games. My wife retired from the system in education after 30 years. My son is a volunteer firefighter at the Elk Ridge Fire Department. So we're not new to this area. I love the state of Maryland, and that's why I'm getting involved. Whether you vote for me or if you vote for someone else, I need you to vote. We need to wake up and get involved and see what's going on in our state. Thank you. My name is Bob Cockey. Visit me on my website, Elect Bob Cockey, or visit my personal Facebook page. It's not a political Facebook page. You can see what I've been doing and talking about for the last several years on my personal Facebook page. On the election ballot, my personal phone number is on there, my cell phone. You don't have to go through any voicemails. You'll call me directly. Thanks for listening to my message.
In March 2016, our county executive, Kevin Kamenetz, announced a settlement of litigation. Baltimore County residents apparently stood accused of serious human rights violations. So serious that Kamenetz committed us to spend $30 million to subsidize developers of affordable housing, and committed us to relocate over 2,000 dependent households to nice suburban neighborhoods with high-performing schools, regardless of the costs. And so, with the stroke of his pen, Towson became the epicenter of the largest public housing relocation experiment in the United States, without so much as a vote by County Council on this deal. And if you even just asked what Baltimore County did wrong, what we were accused of, you would find no answer. No record of the original complaint, no press release from the group suing us, no public record of 4 years of litigation. Over 10,000 pages of case details exempt from the Freedom of Information Act. This was done in secret for a reason, because it was intended to subvert democracy in Baltimore County, to bypass county council, and to impose a far-reaching agenda without any public input. and because the arguments against us would not have withstood public scrutiny, at least not outside of the secret proceedings of this biased HUD court. And because this plan is engineered to ignore the concerns of the communities it targets, regardless of any harm it may cause them. But really, at its core, because the more information is made public, the dirtier this deal looks. County residents had no notice, no right to confront our accusers, no say in the settlement terms imposed on us, which now, by design, can never be modified by our elected representatives, even though most of this deal's costs are scheduled for after Kamenetz leaves office. Let's call this what it was, a betrayal of Baltimore County residents. But Kamenetz was not alone in that betrayal. While these special interests were suing Baltimore County taxpayers, Towson's representative, Delegate Steve Lafferty, was actually on the side of the people suing his constituents. Lafferty is the author and lead sponsor of their top legislative priority, giving them unchecked quasi-governmental power to move thousands of people around Baltimore County like dots on a map. Lafferty's bill would change state law to make this sort of abusive litigation even easier in the future. Not even Kamenetz would go that far, handing unaccountable power to a group of hostile special interests who answer to no elected officials. Maybe this is why, when the settlement was announced, these activists confidently stated that 2,000 households and $30 million was merely a first step. We know their agenda includes forcing Towson to build public housing projects, so we'd be wise to take that statement seriously. Defending democracy against a cabal of special interests, seeking unaccountable power over local communities, should not be controversial. It should not be partisan. And at a local level, it wasn't. By a 6-1 bipartisan vote, Baltimore County Council resoundingly rejected Lafferty's plan. So Lafferty responded by partnering with D.C. area Democrats in the state legislature to override the will of his county's locally elected representatives. Towson residents had no say in Kamenetz's dirty deal, but we will have a choice in 2018. Hi, I'm Steve McIntyre, and I'm running for the House of Delegates, because Towson deserves a representative who actually represents the people who call its communities home, not some partisan agenda or some extreme ideology, and absolutely not some band of special interests who seek to impose their plans on our communities. What happened here is wrong. It really should be a national scandal. But there's a lot more of this story yet to come. This is the first episode in a series, and if you go to my website, stevemcintyre.org, sign up, I'll keep you updated on the latest. And of course, please share this with your friends and neighbors. This is important information. I don't make these statements lightly, but people of Baltimore County deserve to know the truth. Anyway, thanks a lot for paying attention and, considering the facts with an open mind. And I look forward to meeting you on the campaign trail. Thanks a lot, and have a great day.
This is my jump shot.
Trash ball, a neat game. Everybody wins. Let me show you how to play. When you pick up some trash, pretend it's a ball, and then you throw it in the bucket, you're playing a trash ball. A jump shot hook, you gotta put it away. We're gonna play that trash ball every day.
Come on, Baltimore, play ball and keep it clean.
Earl, the Baltimore Colts won it all last year, despite the fact that you had the fourth lowest rushing yardage in the league. How do you account for that?
Well, it's difficult to account for. You always like to get your running game going, which helps your passing game. But last year, we had a veteran crew, and we had good protection up front. We had to do more passing than what we anticipated. But we did get the protection, and we came up with some good plays at the right time. We did play a lot of close games throughout the year, and I think if our running game would have been working a little bit better, we could have scored more points and could have controlled the game more.
Earl, do you feel that you yourself have anything to prove personally this season?
Well, no, I don't think I have anything to prove. I just want to have another good year, and I think the whole team has something to prove. We want to repeat as Super Bowl champions.
Hello?
What the hell?
What in the goddamn hell?
Where the hell am I?
Hello? Can anyone hear me? Can anyone hear me? this place? Why am I here? How? Good evening, Mr. Everett. Sorry to have left you trapped in a room full of creepy paintings and a dead bird and doorways that defy all known laws of physics. Might I suggest a drink to quench your thirst, calm your nerves? Compliments of the house, of course. Why, thank you, sir. Don't mind if I do. But I, don't like to drink alone. Bad habits and all, you understand? Indeed I do. Maybe you could have one with me.
Certainly. It'd be my pleasure, Mr. Everett.
All right, you're a good man. Call me Dan. All right, Danny. What are we drinking tonight? Single malt Scotch whiskey, Mr. Everett. If that is satisfactory to you. Well, I'm not a picky man, Danny. Just make mine a double. Neat. Right away, Mr. Everett. What do you make of all this, Dan? I wish I could say. The truth is, I have no more understanding of this place than you. You know, I was afraid you were gonna say that. Hell of a thing, isn't it, Danny? I'm sorry, sir. A man with no reason. No sense of purpose. I don't know why I'm here, or where I was before. Maybe I'm going funny in the head. Honestly, I don't remember much of anything right now. It's like it's right on the tip of my mind. Like right at the precipice. And if I could just reach a little further, I could grab it. But I can't. I can't remember. It's just out of reach. It's this place, Danny. I don't mind telling you, it's getting to me. It is creeping me out. Things aren't right here. I have to get out of here, Dan. You understand that, don't you? Sure. I am having trouble remembering things, but I know there's more than this. Look, I apologize. I'm a little on edge. I must seem a little loony-toony to you right now. Not at all, Mr. Everett. To be honest, I must say that I feel precisely the same way. You are correct. It is a hell of a thing. Set him up, Danny. Yes, Mr. Everett. Dreaming. That is a interesting hypothesis, Mr. No. Maybe I'm really dreaming, like in a coma or something. I mean, look at me, Christ, carrying on a conversation with you of all people. No offense. None taken, sir. It's just that, you're not the most independent fellow I've known. I understand completely, sir. But how do you propose we test your hypothesis? That's the tricky part, isn't it, Danny? Thing is, I have an idea, but, I think I'm gonna need another drink first. Last call, good friend. Very well, Mr. Everett. Last call. Double whiskey neat? Oh, yes, sir. How did you know that? Intuition, huh? Goddamn intuition. Ever tell you you're a good man, Dan? Oh, yes, Mr. Everett. I believe you did. I mean it. I mean it, Dan. You've always been a good man. Best friend a guy could ask for, I say. At the very least, damn fine drinking companion. Thank you again, Mr. Everett. To dreams? To dreams.
Let me out.
Son of a bitch! It's gone! I did it! Yeah, I did it! I found a way out! I'd ask you to come with me, but I know you're a busy man. Not to mention a little bit cuckoo. I'll see you around, Dano!
Danny, I found a way out.
enjoying your visit here this evening. Now, on with the show.
Hello. Once again, this is Paul Stefan, and this is another edition of TV Free Baltimore Film Reviews. And today, our guest is the director of the recursion theorem, which is what we're mostly going to be talking about, because if you're watching this the way we want to show it, you've just seen the film. And that's Ben Sledge. Welcome, Ben.
Thanks so much for having me on.
It'd be terrific to have you. Now, what is your background? What led you up to this point of getting into film?
Well, I've always been interested in storytelling. So I think storytelling is, what I'm passionate about and what I want to pursue and what I enjoy connecting with audiences over. So I've done that in different ways, but for a long time, I've been doing that in film in an independent director role. So one of the first films I did was a fun little mockumentary about a guy who wants to be a ninja, and then kept going in that way. I really like the drama comedy genre, or some people call it a dramedy. Right. So really a lot of my background came from that, which is a lot different than recursion theorem that people may have just seen. Right. So, but yeah, I was that kid growing up that was always borrowing their parents' camcorder and making little home, movies and creating stories, and it's just been a passion from long ago. And I definitely grew up in a great time period of filmmaking with directors like Spielberg coming on the scene, and so there's a lot, that just visually I had to admire and look up to, and storytellers that I really appreciated and have always enjoyed sort of following in that footstep.
Well, I know. I mean, some people are people who just kind of learned it on their own. Yes. Some people went to film school. Some people got other kind of degrees that are related to. Do you have any formal education or training in film?
I didn't specifically go to school for filmmaking. I went to school and studied photography, and I studied media and all these different fields that sort of surround filmmaking. So I always, dug into that sort of in the background, and that thus like the very independent role. So, in my full-time career pursuits, I've always been in the media side. So I do a lot of video production and work with media, different forms of media and audio. But filmmaking in itself and storytelling in general has always been something that's been in the background that I've always been trying to, get more in the foreground of my life.
And the first real entree into film was Behind the Mask.
Yeah, Beneath the Mask.
Or Beneath the Mask,
Beneath the
I'm
Mask,
sorry.
yeah. And, that was, after I'd finished school, and I had some friends that were interested in making a little skit and telling a story, and I came back to them and said, no, let's make it a movie. And so, that started the process. That was the first big movie that I did, and that was a feature-length, film, and it was just, there's a lot of bad production values in it, but we had a really good story, and even when I go back and watch it now, I sort of grimace through some of the production flaws, but honestly, it was a really good way to learn. I don't think there's any better teacher than just doing and making mistakes and jumping in. Maybe, in hindsight, not doing that in a feature would have been a smarter approach. But still, the story is what holds up. And so right. I'm still happy to share that film with people today, even despite its flaws, because I still think it tells a really good story, and it has a character that people relate to and experiences, life experiences that people relate to.
Well, you talk about the story and how important that is to you.
Yes.
Aren't you often the screenwriter for your stories or films?
Yeah, I do. I'm not against working with other people's ideas and other people's scripts, but as an independent director, it's often fitting that I'm put in a place where I have to write the stories that I want to tell, and I actually really enjoy that process, and I really like collaborating with others. So. Oftentimes, I will be getting other people's input and other people's ideas on story, and but I think as a director who really appreciates story and really likes story, if you're telling a story that comes from yourself, you definitely you're the best person to bring that to the screen and sort of realize that vision. So, to me, that's always a fascinating experience.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's good, because there are filmmakers who are more visual.
Yes.
And they will tell a story with pictures more
yes.
than they will with words. But with you, it starts with the words. And to me, I would maybe agree with you to say I can make it analogous to baseball, to say the best thing about baseball, if you don't have good pitching,
you don't have a good team.
Yes.
In this case, if you don't have those bones, if you don't have that script,
Yeah.
then you've got a lot of tap dancing you have to do with other things, with lighting and photography and the actors and what they bring to it, and
Yeah.
effects and whatever, to say that, but if you've got that solid story, it sounds like you're at least halfway home.
Yeah, and that's what, in the recursion theorem, one thing we'd keep coming back to is, making sure it's about the story, and, everything has to serve that story, or otherwise you're just, like you said, you're getting into something that's just showing off some lighting or showing off some camera techniques, but if it's not serving the story, it's just sort of superfluous, and it's very important to me, I guess as someone who cares about narrative and has, a message I want to communicate, that it all comes back to story. And I think there's plenty of room for films that are just entertainment or just, visual pieces of storytelling like you were mentioning, but different people have different wants and desires. And for me, I'm interested in telling a story to someone and connecting to someone over that story.
Well, that's good. I mean, I always tell people, they ask me what kind of movie I like, and I always say I like those films that are character-driven.
Okay, yeah.
Whether it's about one character or two characters who interact in a certain way. But what I like to also call a small story. It's not explosions. It's not the summer blockbuster. It's not a slapstick film. And it's apparently the Europeans always seem to still do that better than we do. But or they get theirs made. Let's put it that way. But those kind of things, because they're, like you say, you can connect because they're about real people. It's not like Wonder Woman or Captain America is going to be your next door neighbor. I mean, what happens to real people?
Yeah.
And so that's how I see that. Now, with this, where did you get the idea for the recursion theorem?
Well, it has a few different sources of inspiration, but in terms of the story itself, it really comes from the myth of Sisyphus. So going back quite a ways.
Well, yes, it's
yeah. So if you're not aware, for those of you out there, Sisyphus in sort of Greek mythology is cursed in the underworld with this task of pushing a large boulder up this hill. And when he's almost finished his task, it rolls back down and he has to start all over again. So he's sort of cursed in a sense with doing this task repeatedly. But there was actually this essay on Sisyphus by Camus, the philosopher, who concludes at the end. He had a really challenging statement where he says, you have to consider Sisyphus happy because he has purpose. He has meaning. He has a task that he's meant to do. And I found that really challenging, because it seems to any of us like he has this meaningless effort to just repeat over and over again. But as I started thinking about it more, I started to realize, really this applies to all of us. In life, we have struggle. And the more I thought about it, I thought, struggle is really necessary. And struggle is what drives us to change and to get better. And it's only through our struggles that we grow. And so looking at, Sisyphus in that light, I saw, he has a task, like we all have a task. We all have a task of moving through this life and facing our challenges and growing. And it's not so much, I think the big takeaway for me was, it's not about whether you complete your goals or not. It's the fact that we're all here and that we establish goals and that we strive toward them, and something pushes back and we struggle and we keep going. Because otherwise you either complete your goal and you move on to another goal, or you don't get to complete it. But to me, that's not what defines us or defines our success. It's that we're here, we have challenges, we persevere, we struggle against them, and because of that, we grow.
Was that, you mentioned, that sounded like a main theme, but were there other, you said, maybe other inspirations for the...
Oh yeah, there was definitely just creative inspirations.
Oh,
and
creative. Okay.
One of them was an old video game called Asteroids. I don't know if you're familiar with that, but
yes.
Going back in the ways, early
My
Atari
era.
days. And if you've just watched the movie, you know that there's this whole play with the screen, and so that's very much comes from the Asteroids video game, and there's obviously some filmmaking influences from Hitchcock and Kubrick, and going back to sort of some Wells, a classic noir and black and white film era, which I didn't grow up in that era, but I grew up watching a lot of reruns from that era, so I always have appreciated those filmmakers, and I feel like we don't see a lot of that anymore. We don't see that kind of filmmaking anymore. We see a lot of the Wonder Woman, we see a lot of these movies that are great and entertaining, but they're very much just popcorn entertainment. So I really enjoy going back to those films where you have more defined characters, more defined struggles, and they're just beautiful to look at.
You bring up Hitchcock, but also it's been online, whether you said it or people have compared it to an episode of The Twilight Zone.
Yes. Yeah,
it has that feel to it.
It definitely has a Twilight Zone, and I was a big fan of watching Twilight Zone, again, reruns growing up.
Right,
but
of course.
Yeah, I really appreciate that the Twilight Zone has, it can be challenging at times. Now, there's episodes that are, they did a lot of episodes, so the quality ranges, from here to there, but they really had an intent in a lot of episodes to tell story, yes, but also to deliver a message or to have a social commentary and to allow you to leave the episode and think, well, what did that mean? How does that apply to me? And I always enjoy storytelling that doesn't wrap everything up nicely, and I think Twilight Zone was very good at that. So, it would ask you to participate in it, and I hope Recursion Theorem does that a little bit. I try very much in this film not to explain everything to the audience. I want the audience to sort of have to interpret and to think about it, and I really enjoy talking to people about the movie and what it means to them, and I think if you can do that, if you can leave the audience where they're participating in it, and not just closing all the loops for them, you get much better interaction. You get different ideals from them.
Well, as I, have felt, and I talked to another filmmaker I've had in here, I don't know who it was, but I said that today it seems like it does go for like the obvious, the cheap, a lot of blood in the film, that kind of thing. And I think that's what I told the filmmaker. I said, well, you ever thought of doing something a little more like suspense or a suspense film, something that was more intellectual, had people think, or where you had to I told them at the time, I said, Twilight Zone got into my head because you'd watch it and afterwards you might be frightened, but it was all up here.
Yeah.
It wasn't what they didn't obviously throw the bodies and the gore and the monsters in your face. It was just something that was there in your mind. It seems like everything, and that's one of the things we're against, and what we're doing here with TV Free Baltimore is trying to elevate what you see on YouTube, is that there is an audience out there for something a little more intelligent. There's an audience out there for something a little more where you put some thought into it, or like you say, participate in without being, POV participating.
Yeah.
And, and so that's, I think that's important, because I watch a lot of TCM, by the way. And
yes.
And the guy who's the cool top host now, Ben Mankiewicz, he made a comment, and he talked about, he said, I used to be wondering why all these young people watch these old films, and he says, I don't anymore.
Yeah.
And that's part of what we're saying. We know there is an audience out there that's hungry for that sort of thing, and they're not getting it.
You're right.
And what we're going to be trying to do with our entertainment and our news and everything, shows, crime, whatever, is going to be different. And I think people like you, filmmakers like you also have that ability to do that. I want to see the little comedy film because, wow, this guy does comedy, suspense, Hollywood hire this guy, but or something. But anyway, okay, the other thing to say is explain the title, because a lot of people say, the recursion theorem.
Yeah. The title comes from a mathematical concept, but really like this idea of recursion is just the sense of an embedded repetition. And again, if you've seen the film, you see that there is this idea of loops and looping. And so when I was working on the script and I was working on the title, I was looking a lot into sort of computer references and how computers loop in, and just different mathematical formulas for these inherent recursiveness in the film. So, the ideal for this film for the recursion is simply that, we know that this person exists in a time and space that is a little bit different than ours. And I sort of leave that open to some interpretation. And I know that drives some people crazy, and then some people really enjoy it. But yeah, that's all that's there behind the title, is just to drive home this idea that he's in a separate space where he doesn't really know what's going on, but we do know there's this pattern of repetition, not only physically but within time itself.
Because in some ways, if you look into it, not looking at things deeply, I looked at 3 different definitions. They were all sort of dealt with mathematics.
Yes.
One was set theory, one had to do with computers. And the one interesting thing I got out of one of them, and I think it's kind of confirming whether you did it consciously or not, it says a recursion theorem is a way in some form of mathematics where you have this problem or something insurmountable, and you take it down, you do the small solution first, and they build upon one another to possibly the point where you reach the big solution.
Yeah.
And for those who've seen the film, you could say that's kind of intimated by that scene. This is about putting my own head. You talk about what people think about. Is where he's going up on the ladder.
Right.
And he figures, I have found a way out. but he snags his shirt and he falls down. And at that point, I thought that was the ending, because I was like, for a filmmaker, how do they end it? But then he does come up and he's sitting in the chair, and we get this sense it will start all over again, even though you didn't say that. But I felt like saying, if the guy was smart, then he knows the next time maybe I take my shirt off and I go through. You know, that kind of thing. It's like you've got the idea of the smaller problem because of the struggle or effort you made. Then can I build on that and go further the next time and go further until I escape this hell or whatever it is?
Right.
Because a couple times hell is the word that's actually used in your film.
Yes.
To kind of give that impression. Now, putting it all together, to do any kind of film, budgets are difficult. And I think you got a lot of production value for a $20,000 budget.
Yeah.
And that's another reason we will show, you know, I've shown the film and we'll show it so that people can listen to your appeal and contribute. But
thank you.
But you know, so what kind of, in a sense, you know, what are the challenges of making a good film on a micro budget?
Oh, there's so many challenges, but I'll tell you a good story is that when we started the film, we were thinking we would shoot on location. So we were scouting places that we could film. We were looking for, you know, early century mansions, and you know, we kept running into this problem where we couldn't afford to shoot at places that were close by because they rent them out for weddings. You know, they have, you know, you're competing with other people, and so the budgets are pretty high. Then the places that we could afford, they would be a couple hours drive out. So that just turned into a logistics nightmare of trying to get the crew out and get them back, and you know, over several, you know, weeks of shooting, or at least a couple of weeks of shooting. And you know, I just remember getting really discouraged and looking at all these different sites, and I was go in and take photos. And you know, one night after a scouting trip, I was looking at the photos and just thinking to myself, we really only need 3 walls in the story. It all takes place in one location. The 4th wall is the camera. You know, there's only 3 walls in the set that are ever seen. And so I came into our group one day and I said, guys, I think we can build this set and just, you know, save ourselves a lot of money. And everyone sort of laughed, and that was the end of that conversation until I came back the next week with, you know, having done more research. And you know, at this stage, I'd never built a set before, so so I had to come back with a lot more research, showing some you know, sketches of how we could build the flats and, you know, put them together. And slowly, I started turning people around to this idea, and we ended up, you know, renting a empty studio storage facility and building a set inside and filming it all on set. And that's sort of the creative problem solving you run into when you're on a micro budget. You have to have alternate ways of, you know, finding the solutions that you need. It's not always going to go the way you think it's going to originally. And then, you know, on the other end of it, a lot of the cost are marketing. So that's always a challenge. And just getting the audience out there, that takes money, and it takes effort, and it takes people. And you know, that again is where you have to really do a lot of it yourself and get in there and try to be your own promoter. And it's not easy, and you know, it's definitely not fun, but it's one of those challenges that come with working with a micro budget.
Now, the thing was, so you're basically telling me on this film you were your own production designer.
Yeah, we had some help, but yeah, I mean, when you're at a small indie level, nobody gets to wear one hat. So like everyone on the team is multitasking, everyone's doing more than one job, and you need people that have that flexibility and can do that.
Well, I did interview here a very interesting guy, Chester Stacy, who was a production designer, and that's his thing, has his own shop and everything. And so I'm amazed then what you guys put together, because it convinced me that you were shooting in the room of a mansion somewhere.
Yeah.
You know, it looked like that. I mean, the paintings, you know, all the furniture and the knickknacks and all that. I mean, that looked like they were there and belonged there. You know?
It was a lot of work, and that's one of the things that I think, you know, filmmakers definitely need to know. If you know, at this level of production, you're getting in there and sanding these things yourself to make them look worn, and you know, I'm fine with that because it's my vision and it's something that I want to create. So I'm willing to do whatever it takes to achieve that. But you know, those details are very important because that room is very much a character. And like I said, it all comes back to story. So we weren't going to move ahead unless the set was, you know, the character that we wanted and was telling the story that we wanted. And all those little small things are very important.
And that was great. Like, and I've talked. That's what I talked to him about when he was here. About, I said to him, I said, you know, I think the set tells the story. Because a lot of times, if you have a character, even before maybe, of course you see him right away. What I'm saying, if you sometimes show a room before the character comes in, it tells you a lot about your character. It's sort of like an establishing shot.
Yes.
In that it's just, oh, look at the books he reads, or look, he's got a drink here, or his room's sloppy, or his room's neat, or, you can, show objects, oh, here's the book he's reading. And so, right, you get a feel for your character.
Very much.
And so it's real important.
Yeah.
And he challenged me a little and says, no, I create the vision of the director and, with my stuff. But since you were both.
Since I was both.
You had that.
Well, and it was important to me that when, we have that opening shot, that we see the room and we see Dan in the same light, and that is that they both are worn out, and that you talk about that layered shell of how many times has he been in this, and I wanted that seed to be planted from early on that both that room and Dan have been at this for some time. So I think having that weariness and that fatigue had to be there for both characters.
Well, there you go. Plus, also, you didn't say this on camera, so we'll get to say now, why Dan Franco?
Dan does an amazing job in the recursion theorem. I was so happy to have him be part of our project, and he's become a great friend since. And he came in and did an audition, and we had a few people come in, and it was clear right away that Dan was the right person for the job because he had this ability to portray two different personalities very distinctly and very clearly, which was very important to me. He had this everyman, everyday look, and he was the right age for the project, and there's a lot of emotional range required in the story, and he was able to pull it off. And we had to get there on set. It was a collaboration. I'm very much a collaborative person, and I really enjoy getting input and ideas. And working with Dan was very rewarding in that regard. And really, I think I grew as a director working with him, and I think he grew as an actor. And for me, that's the number one thing that I hope comes away from in terms of the team part of a project. I hope everybody comes away having grown a little bit and having gotten to stretch themselves a little bit. And I think there needs to be that inherent self-reward in these type of projects. We all need to grow and achieve. And Dan, I think, really grew a lot in this process. And he had to trust me, and I had to learn to trust him. And through that collaboration, that process, I think we were able to pull something off that neither one of us could have predicted when we first went in that it would have worked as well as it did. But we had enough of a hint there to feel like this is the right person, this is going to work, and we're going to challenge one another. And he was open to that, and that's the number one thing. The actor has to be open to that challenge and to that feedback and input. And the director, I think, needs to be as well. Or I think it works better when they are. Not all directors are, but I think it works best for me if if I give Dan the freedom to say, I have these concerns or I feel this way, and then I might agree or we might, I might disagree, but it gives us an opportunity to talk about it and just come together with a common approach.
Well, that's great. And I thought another thing I wanted to bring up was, what I thought was rather clever camera work. The angles and the shots you use, and sometimes there's that brief thing of where the screen goes red and it goes back to black and white. And also, along with that, I guess I can call it special effects, but it might have been done by the camera. The thing where he, sticks his hand through the window, or first the wall, kind of thing with the wall, and then the thing with the window, and then how he throws his coat up through the ceiling, and those kind of things. Those are clever shots, and actually the one where you show range, but also the interesting action, and I think that's the camera work too. Well, first of all, it's kind of he's funny. He's running and he keeps running and he keeps coming back through the room, and then he throws the shoe, and the second time he throws the shoe and he catches it, and he's happy that he could catch it. And
he sort of loses himself for a moment there.
Those are camera tricks.
Yeah. And I have to give a shout out to Omar Juarez, who was our cinematographer, and then Rick Adelson, who was one of our producers, and he was in charge of a lot of the effect shots. So they both had to listen to my ideas and how I wanted things to happen, and then they helped us get there. And I couldn't do this whole project without a very good team, so I'm very grateful for the contributions of everyone involved.
So, but all that was already in the script, that stuff?
Yeah, that was in the script. The flashes of red were not in the script. That was a decision that I made after looking at it in post and just, deciding that we needed some hints there to drive the audience home of these moments of contact for the character, these moments of emotional contact. And we sort of had a discussion that there's certain elements in the story that as he repeats through them, there's these certain moments that always happen. And then there's other moments when he repeats that are new and different experiences. So we're trying to push that home with some of those flashes of red, that there's a sense of familiarity, there's a sense of profoundness with them, that there's something that's sticking out in Dan's mind that he's remembering from a trip through this journey before.
Okay. Then another thing where I think you were lucky, which a lot of people aren't when they make a small budget film, is that you actually had somebody who did a score.
Very much so. And another shout out to Christian Hessler, who did the score for us. And he started out going back to Beneath the Mask. He was a really big fan of that film. He found us online, and he actually got in touch. And this is going back to 2005 or so. And he sort of just followed me in the work I was doing and wanted to be involved as a composer. And this project, I finally reconnected. I'm saying, hey, we're doing this film. I think it might be a good match. Do you want to look at it and see if you want to be involved? And yeah, he jumped on it, and he did a great job. We had a lot of doing a score like that was a new experience for me as well. So there was a lot of back and forth and learning how to direct a composer, which is completely different than directing actors. And, and he did an amazing job, and we have this very unique score that I'm very proud of, and I think really enhances the film. It really drives home the moments of excitement, like you were talking about the shoe, and then the more dramatic moments, and it takes you on this emotional journey with Dan.
I mean, it's subtle, I think. I suppose some film scores, if you think like old Hollywood, if there was something big happening, you'd have that big surge in the orchestra, that kind of thing. But it's always there, and it's a component you do pay attention to, but it's not overwhelming. It's not saying somebody like the composer showing off a little bit. You're not getting that.
Yeah, it doesn't take you out of the story. It doesn't distract you away from it. But it does, there are, even in this small film, there are some themes and some cues that circle back around and that you hear again. And so it really, I think, ties it together and bookends it very well.
Okay, and again, I say an important thing for me, a lot of people in films, and you may mention a little earlier here, about the ending. Did you have thoughts of different endings for it or different ways to end it? Because at one point it looks like, when he falls off the ladder, you can get it's over because he's dead or something. And I said to myself, please don't let him wake up and this has been a dream. That whole cliche, he had a bad nightmare and then he gets up and goes to work a night up. See you when I get home, honey, kind of thing. But then he gets up and then it's a split second and then there he is in the chair again.
Yes.
And was that from the beginning? Or
that was always the end from the beginning. We did have some discussions on when the camera zooms out at the very end, that perhaps it keeps going and you see like several Dans in several rooms at the same time. But I didn't like, one, that was going to be challenging for us to pull off from an effects point of view. But two, I wanted to keep it smaller and focused on the one character, and then you sort of extrapolate that he's been through this a lot of times. But it's a little bit different feeling if you see like hundreds of Dans in hundreds of rooms, and so I felt like that was an idea we explored, but the way that it ends now is the way it was originally written, and ultimately what I thought worked best for the film.
Because that decision, I thought, worked well, because what you're talking about, multiple rooms, multiple Dans, then I think you'd be changing the focus. Instead of saying Sisyphus, you'd be getting into Dante's Inferno. Maybe, here's his different rings of hell that he's in.
Yeah, exactly. A little bit different a message. So in the end, I think just keeping on the single character and letting him iterate through it.
Right. In a way, like summing it up to me is to say, this is a movie that really, even though it's 20-some minutes long, that people have to pay attention to. They have to become part of it and just kind of stop and watch, because you may really miss something. You do have to think, and maybe even think along with the character.
Yes.
And if you want an easy, cute ending, you're not going to get it.
No, you're not.
It's like, is this endless? Is he in this endless hell? Or is he going to do, like I said, with the recursion theorem, he'll eventually figure his way to get out of that room?
Yeah. And I love hearing these theories and these different ideas. And yeah, I'm like I said, I'm a big fan of films that don't wrap it up for you neatly. And to me, if you leave a film experience and you're still thinking about it the next day or the day after that, then that is success. Because that's not going to happen if you're going to just see something that's pure entertainment and it gives you all the answers. That still has value and that's still an experience.
Right.
But it's not going to stick with you. And what I love with hearing people's interpretations like yours for this film, it allows this conversation, and and then also people just want to know. They're like, well, what did go on? And I like that curiosity. And my response is, well, the challenge is I have my ideas and I can tell you those, but really what's valuable to me is your thoughts and your ideas on it.
Well, that's great, because I know, and I brought my daughter up this way, we'd go to films, mostly at the Charles, because they were, again, more character-driven and foreign films, to say the whole thing for me, even when I was younger and when high school, college, is the idea to be able to discuss the film after you're eating something after the movie. And then, like I said earlier, there's been so many movies, they're so planned out for you. There's nothing really to talk about. Oh, I liked it. It was a thrill. It was funny. Okay, now what are we going to talk about? As opposed to this, you could keep talking about it. If you had 3 or 4 people with all different ideas about recursion theorem, you'd have a nice, post-movie dinner conversation.
Yeah, very much so.
And that's how I saw it. But I want to thank you for that part. But tell us now about your upcoming or ongoing projects.
All right, so we have a short film again. This one is a comedy, it's actually a piece of a feature that I wanted to film. Decided to take out one scene, put a different beginning and end on it, and put it together as a independent film, and use that to, hopefully as a means to have some success with it, and maybe get a chance to do the feature film. I'm very aware of not trying to stretch above my means. So with Beneath the Mask, I did a feature, and I felt like I did stretch above my means. As I mentioned, it suffers a little bit because of that. With Recursion Theorem, I felt like one of the things we were able to do with that was make it small and do everything that we could to the best of our abilities. And I think we were pretty successful with executing what we wanted. And so with this short comedy, it's called Take a Penny, and it's really just about a character who is experiencing a daily frustration, and it just sort of follows him through that. This one, because it's a piece of a longer film, there's not a lot of that significant message that I like to tell in it.
Yeah, right.
But it gives us a chance to do something a little different, something that's funny. So that's actually complete, and we're going to shop that around to some festivals. It's not available to the public right now. We don't have it posted on YouTube, but we will soon. The big project I'm working on right now is actually a game called Gears of Eden. So as we were entering post-production on Recursion Theorem, I was still wanting to tell stories and connect with people and share. And I wasn't ready to jump into another film project. We still had a lot of room to go on finishing Recursion Theorem in post-production. So I started this game project, and it tells a story set in the future. It's a sci-fi game, and it involves this world of sentient machines that are in the future in a different star system, and they sort of only remember humans in their myths. And they have their own civilizations, their own ideas, their own beliefs. And what it allows us to do, which is really interesting, is really to critique humanity by critiquing the civilization of these machines, but to do it in a way that's a step removed and a little bit safer. And we're really just exploring, the ideal of civilization and belief, and what it means to be alive. And again, sort of, I wouldn't say it's related to Recursion Theorem, but Recursion Theorem was, at its core, exploring some of these same messages that I talked about earlier. What does it mean for us to be alive and in this world, and what are our challenges? And this is sort of that was a singular experience in Recursion Theorem, and with Gears of Eden, we're looking at more of a macro experience. So what does it mean for civilization, and as our separate cultures and how they work together and integrate and come together, what does that mean, and what do our beliefs mean about us and about the things that we believe in? So there's a lot of big ideas, but that has to distill down into fundamentally what is a fun game to play.
Right.
And so it's a totally different challenge than filmmaking and a different way of telling a story. But it's a very exciting and very fun experience.
Well, terrific. Now what I want you to do, close up by telling folks in your camera your contact information. If they want to find you or your films or any of your creative adventures, let them know how to do that.
All right, so you can find Recursion Theorem at recursiontheorem.com. You can follow me on Twitter at SledgeWeb. And then for Gears of Eden, you can keep up with Gears of Eden on Twitter as well, at Gears of Eden, or visit gearsofeden.com.
Terrific.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for coming by, Ben.
It's been a pleasure.
And that's our latest episode of TV Free Baltimore's Movie Reviews. We hope to give you more films and their directors in the coming weeks. Thank you, and good night.
We hope you're enjoying your visit here this evening. Now, on with the show.
You're watching The Paul Stefan Show on TV Free Baltimore.
Hello, welcome to another edition of The Paul Stefan Show. And today we are with filmmaker, actor, Dan Franco. Welcome, Dan.
Thanks for having me.
Okay, great. Now, you are local, correct?
I am, yeah.
And you grew up in what?
I grew up in Frederick County, in Frederick, actually, and went to school here at Western Maryland, which is now McDaniel.
Right.
And still here, still.
Well, that's terrific, because I was going to say, being local, you know, it says, but when did you know, let's for example, you just say, okay, I want to act, or that I want the life of an actor, which is not always fun.
I would say 1977.
Okay.
My parents took me to see Star Wars, and I said I want to do that.
Interesting.
And so from then on, it's been kind of working toward doing that.
That's interesting, because I mean, when Jamie Nash was in here on Friday, he said the same thing. He thought movies like Star Wars, Back to the Future, Raiders, those kind of things were seminal to a whole group of today's filmmakers.
Yeah.
And so
I wanted to be a Jedi Knight, but once I figured out that wasn't a thing, that they were actors, then I transitioned, I sidestepped into that.
And you did that by pursuing it. I guess they had acting classes at McDaniel or Western Maryland.
At theater art major, communication minor,
right.
and then once I got graduated in '97, so right around that time in this area was a great time for Baltimore and Maryland in general. Had some great film incentives. So there was just a lot of, West Wing was here all the time, and The Replacements was filming here, and just all kinds of movies and TV. Homicide was actually transitioning out. It had just kind of ended. But yeah, it was just there was a lot of opportunities to work on film and television, and so
sort of Baltimore's golden era.
Yes, exactly.
I mean, of course, then you had The Wire come after that. And I like to remind people to say that also, not even in Baltimore necessarily, but Havre de Grace, they had Dawson's Creek.
That was here?
Yeah, I think they had a lot of scenes shot up there.
Okay.
Yeah, and I don't know all of it, but a lot of it was. I know that because we had an actor who was involved with that, I think.
Gotcha.
In here also, and I think Johnny Alonso might have been in there too.
I knew he had worked on that. I didn't know that was here. I thought that
he was also on One Tree Hill too. He did that.
Yeah.
But so the problem is now, and I like to bring this up with a lot of people because maybe our people are not really aware, is how hard it is now for filmmakers in the Maryland area.
Yeah.
Because the feature I talk about it with Maryland filmmakers about making films here, and what do you think has really happened, or what's caused? Why were the funds drastically cut like this?
I think, unfortunately, the folks down in Annapolis sort of look at the film industry as short-term impact economically. So they see that for 8 weeks, 10 weeks, or whatever, this film is here, and it's using caterers and dry cleaners and stuff, and then it ends. And so they see that as a very short-term benefit, so they don't want to put the tax incentives behind it. Unfortunately, what they don't see is that when you have 8 to 10 weeks of this production, and then you've got more tax incentives, and this production can then come in right on the tail end of it, and you string 2 or 3 productions together at a time, you start to keep the grips and the electricians and the prop masters and all those people here, and more people learning. So you create this infrastructure that can support multiple productions, and it's like the Field of Dreams. If you build it, they'll come. So if they know that the infrastructure is here with the talent and the actors and the crew, and they're going to come here. Right. And I think we were talking before we went online here. In Atlanta, they made about $10 billion last year.
It's amazing, that figure.
So it's you put the emphasis behind the taxes, and the rest of it's going to come. And
yeah, I don't know how the film office here in Maryland worked, but what makes sense to me, based upon what you've told me, is that you would have somebody in that film office who do like what you said, kind of line up the production, say, oh, now we've got this one in the pipeline and the one come after that, and sort of schedule them. Because when you say it's a welcoming kind of atmosphere, and the variety of, you could have all kinds of things done in Maryland because of the different climates. We've got the mountains, we've got the ocean,
Yeah.
we have all that stuff. We've got horse country, we've got all that.
It's the great thing about Maryland. You've got every location you need.
Right.
You know, so.
But yet they blew the opportunity. And somebody else had told me, I think it might have been Ken Arnold when he was here, the problem is that all the money was going to big production. They would give all the money, boom, House of Cards,
Yes.
boom, it's all the money. Veep, boom, you get all the money. And there's nothing left for the little guys,
Right.
the little indie filmmakers. And he was supposed to be testifying before the legislature about that this year.
Yeah.
I don't know if anything came out of it or anything came out of committee because I haven't heard. But
I don't think they've. I'm not sure how that turned out.
Yeah.
So I kind of dropped off the grid on that one a little bit. So I'm not really sure how that developed. But it's something that we're going to continue every year to
Right.
keep fighting for. And
Good.
and when you have just down the road, 10 hours down the road, you have a great example of what it can be. And
Yeah.
you don't even have to get to that level. You can it's baby steps,
Yeah.
but you can do a lot more than we have now. And
Right.
and then you don't have people. I know so many people that have left for Atlanta. They've moved to New York. It was one of the great things to live here and work on Veep and the Wire and House of Cards. So
Right.
it's disappointing that we're about to be done with production for a little while.
yeah, it's a shame. I mean, so speaking of that, I was thinking, as an actor in this atmosphere, can you make a living at just acting?
No, some people do. There's a lot of
Dan Franco.
I don't know, but I haven't. I've not really kind of pressed that for myself. But I have a lot of friends who work constantly in doing background work or training films, industrial films, commercials, voiceover. So there is a full-time acting opportunity available, even for union, but it's fewer and far between, especially now with like Discovery leaving for New York.
Right.
That's a big hurt to the
Sure.
people who relied on that voiceover work and those reenactor jobs.
Well, I mean, part of that talk about, I think maybe when I had screenwriter Sean Paul Murphy in here too, it's about he wrote scripts and he edited for different Discovery programs. And now if that's going to New York and he's based here, that's work he won't be doing. And so we're back to where they used to say, keep your day job, I guess.
Yeah. For me, the nice thing is that as an actor, and particularly as a character actor, you kind of don't age out of that. So I have my day job, and I can continue pursuing it. And if it doesn't happen between now and then, it'll be my retirement. Just
there you go.
Just doing great roles.
Because I mean, another actor that we had in here maybe started the ball rolling in acting. A man who does everything, Mark Redfield. I don't know if you've heard of him. And he told me another thing that went past. Is years ago when he was starting out, and he's much older than you are, he said that Baltimore was a great town for doing voiceovers and for commercials.
Mm-hmm.
Baltimore was a big commercial town, and so actors could always get work either doing the commercial or doing the voiceover for a commercial.
Yeah.
In the 60s or 70s, I guess, 80s even, and that's all gone. So that happens.
It does. I mean, you hear George Clooney on a Toyota commercial or a Budweiser commercial. It's really, George, you needed a little kick there. You needed to make your SAG dues for your benefits.
So you give money to like the march on Saturday or whatever.
Right.
But so when you became a professional actor, what was your first role?
My
early role.
Early role. I did a lot of background work on the West Wing, which was fantastic because that was at the time the show. And it's what's really cool about this area is that we don't get a lot of television, but the television we get is some of the best. Homicide, The Wire, House of Cards, Veep,
West Wing.
West Wing. It's those are the Emmy winners. Those are the ones that are
right.
And so when you're there, as a young actor, especially so my education and my background, my training was in theater. So you're watching the best television actors do their thing, which is a much more concentrated, condensed version of the craft. So you're sitting there watching Allison Janney and Bradley Whitford and Martin Sheen do the thing right in front of you. It really was a great almost like my grad, my MFA was on the set of The West Wing, watching.
Yeah, so that's great. Yeah.
So, but I think my first speaking role was on The Wire.
Oh, it was.
Yeah.
Oh. All right. And I think I saw that in your highlight reels.
Yeah.
Where you're the cop in the cruiser kind of thing with the mayor.
With the mayor, Mr. Littlefinger from Game of Thrones.
Well, I thought that was a great scene. It seems what I was wondering, I was going to ask you about that too. Now, it seems like you've played roles that may have been serious, but also ones that are comic.
Yep.
Do you have a preference for what type of role you like?
I don't. I think one of the things for me is that it's all about finding truth in the moment. And so even some of the comedic stuff I've done, it's not funny to you in the moment. So we talk about the Night Watchman. I have a scene where I have to dance.
Right.
They're going to shoot me. They think I've been bitten, and so I do this absurd dance, and for that character, that's a very serious life or death situation. So I can't think it's funny. I can't.
Right.
It's not a comic scene to me. It's a very, very dramatic scene.
So you're playing it straight, basically.
And so that's.
But it gets laughs.
Yeah. and that's what comedy is taking something and raising the stakes so high. And so a lot of times comedy is all about the seriousness and the truthfulness of the scene. And
right.
And when the actor is self-aware of the joke, it kills it. So it's one of the harder things, especially when the other side of the shot is three of your best friends and they're just laughing their butts off, and you're trying not to let them blow your scene.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
I mean, well, part of that too is I just think, I guess, because when you're looking at your audition reel, I guess I'll call it, there's a lot of comedy in there. Wasn't the thing with the Veep with the sneeze kind of a thing, and that was comic.
That was, yeah.
So they weren't all funny, but a lot of it were funny stuff that you do, and so. I said, "What is he? He's just an actor who does funny, or
that's the great thing. You look at one of the great character actors is Stephen Root, and he was on News Radio, and that was a comedic.
Right.
He's been in a lot of the Coen Brothers movies, and those are usually very serious. And it all, to me, always boils back down to just playing it truthfully, and it doesn't matter if it's comedy or drama, because you're just going to go where the scene takes you.
You either think of some people, they can only do one or the other, or they get typecast in doing one or the other, so that you don't see if they've got those acting chops for comedy or drama.
Right.
I mean, another good example you mentioned that I've learned to grow my admiration over the years for Allison Janney. In West Wing. And now she also wins Emmys for Mom, which is comedy.
Yeah.
And she's very funny in that.
And she was, a lot of times on West Wing, she was a bit of the comic relief. She had a lot of great delivery on the zingers and things like that. And the Oscar for I, Tonya.
That's right.
That was an amazing role.
Playing Tonya Harding's mother.
One of the greatest villain characters ever put on film. So,
I mean, but there you go. I mean, that's the versatility. That's a good character actor, a female character actor is what you call her. Now, trying to think now in acting, and things aren't so great now. But why would you say I'll continue to act in Maryland and not go to New York or LA to act?
I do. I have been to New York and Pittsburgh and some other markets to audition, and I've worked out of Pittsburgh. And it's something I'm shooting for. But it's I have my home is here. I've grown up in Maryland. I'm a Marylander, and even if I can break into that New York market, I'd ultimately like to still remain and keep my family here. This is home.
Now, what about saying, though, with film drying up, getting into more of the Maryland and the regional theater scene?
I miss theater, but I have a 13-year-old, and theater's a big demand on time, and so it's not. For me, it's not a priority right now. I work on film or television. You 2-3 days here or there, and then you're back to regular life, and
that's the train. Don't
yes.
But part of it, I saw. I mean, you're one of the few people I've had in here so far. that have not only just a SAG card, but you have an AFTRA card.
Well, they merged.
Oh, they merged.
Yeah,
That's what it is.
I never
Okay.
joined AFTRA,
Okay.
but I got into SAG prior to the merger. So
I didn't know that they did that now, that you're not just theater or film, you can be both by getting a combination card.
No, the theater is the equity.
Oh, equity. Actors' equity, that's right.
So SAG was film,
Right.
and AFTRA was radio and
Oh,
television.
that's what that was, radio and
those
TV.
two merged, and but
gotcha.
there's reciprocity between the unions. So
that's pretty good.
I'm planning one day to have my equity card. So
Now, of course, you've done, local projects here, and actually even local films, right? A Night Watchman is the most recent.
Right.
And you talked a little bit about that one scene where you do that sort of exotic dance or whatever. Did you make that up, or was there a choreographer that helped you with that?
No, that was all me. That was just out of the recesses of my brain. Watching a lot of MTV and boy band dance moves. No, there were certain things that the script called for, specific at the very beginning, kind of a sort of a striptease type dance, and it ends with a twerk. But in between, it was all up to me to choreograph. And we have a great video somewhere on the What Night Watchman Facebook page of the stunt team teaching me how to twerk. So that's a highlight of my career.
So that was great, though. I thought that was funny, because they said you were described as sort of like as the chief a-hole or something.
Yes,
you weren't
absolutely.
one of the guards, so you weren't one of those guards.
No, I'm the office jerk who I don't treat them very well, and of course they come across and they try to help me out. So they're a lot cooler than my character is.
Yeah, but unfortunately, we do see in the movie, without giving too much away about the movie, that you do die in the movie.
I do turn.
Turn into the vampire.
Which was really cool.
But a zombie. But
it was a vampire zombie. Yeah.
So the vampire zombie. You're one of those. Huh?
I had the whole
you were the clown pyre.
Makeup apparatus. Not a clown pyre.
No, just a vampire zombie.
You had to be a clown first. So
you had to be a clown first to be the clown pyre.
Yeah.
That was the main evil character.
Right.
Yeah. That guy goes up in flames or whatever.
Yes.
Because we want to get some of the stunt people in here too.
Oh yeah, they're great. That stunt team is the Misfits of Mayhem, and I had to do a couple stunts during the shoot. One of them was one of the vampires throws me, and it's a 20-foot wire pull.
Wow!
Just flying through the air, and those guys. I was actually the guy who plays the main bad clown. Blimpo is one of our stuntmen. His name's Gary Peebles, and Gary and Jeff Wilhelm, the stunt coordinator, they were really great about, first of all, letting us do our own stunts and getting us comfortable with everything that was going to go down, and it's a lot of fun. I mean,
I could imagine.
Yeah.
I mean, and the fact the film was made again in Annapolis, and it's with people you know,
right,
that made it more fun.
It does. It's I've talked about this with some of my friends and things like that. It's you don't often get you look for a movie like this. It's a great experience just if you get to do it on your own.
Right.
You get cast in this thing and it kind of takes off. It's a little movie that could, and everyone's like, wow, that looks like a real movie, and it goes to festivals and it wins award, and then it gets released, and gets a wider I guess life,
Yeah, right. It's around longer. Sure.
So, but the fact that none of us did it alone. We did it with our closest friends in the business. Right. That made it just an incredible experience. So now we're all, we've gone to all these festivals together, Atlanta and Cleveland and New York and Brooklyn and Atlantic City, and so it just became this like, the fun continued for all of us.
Well, great. I think you could think that maybe some of the success is the fact that you did all know each other and were familiar with each other, maybe had worked with each other at some level. Not all of you all together, but you've all been worked together on other projects.
Right.
So that it really was that sense of, like they used to
the
say,
chemistry isn't fake.
Let's
it's
put
there.
on a movie,
Right.
as opposed to let's put on a show like, Judy Garland and the Andy Hardy, Mickey Rooney did.
It's like we get compared sometimes to Shaun of the Dead, and that group is a group that works together often. So the chemistry between those actors is very real, and it's the same thing with us.
Well, like making movies like that. I mean, You know, is it problems with this or any independent film? Is the financing a big problem?
Always, yeah.
Yeah, to
Yeah,
get
you got to have the money to, you know, you want to pay people. You know, we've done a lot of movies through the years that was just, hey, everybody show up on Saturday and we're gonna shoot something. We've done a lot of the 48-hour films in Baltimore and DC, and yeah, there's stuff that we've done in the past that was for, you know, that wasn't paid, but for a movie like this, you know, with the SAG contracts and all of that, you have to have the financing and to do it right. You know, one of the things about The Night Watchman is that it looks great because we had the budget to get the cameras and the DP and the all the things that go with it, the lighting and the crew. You know,
so it looked much better. It looked very professional.
Yes,
and so that's important. I mean, I don't know how hard it is for you then to get, you know, financing or even where financing comes from, you know, these days. But
we were lucky. And a lot of times people do GoFundMe's. The Night Watchman actually started with something like that. It started with a Kickstarter campaign or Indiegogo, one of the two.
Right.
And they took that and they basically shot a short version of the movie.
Okay.
And then they used that short version and the script to go out and secure other financing groups, and then they came back, and none of the stuff from the first short made it into the movie. They completely different location, different costumes, everything. The vampires changed from more Victorian-looking vampires to vampires.
There you go. Easier to get those costumes.
Right.
Probably.
Yes.
Now, another movie that you did that you said you had problems getting it out there, is it The Reversion Theorem?
The Recursion Theorem.
Recursion Theorem, yeah.
So that is that's a 22-ish minute, 24-minute short film. It's an indie thriller. It plays very much like a Hitchcock or a Twilight Zone movie. I play a character that wakes up in a room not really knowing who he is, and he can't leave the room. He goes out one side, he comes in the other. He goes out the window, he comes through the front. It's so he's stuck, and he doesn't know. You know, it's kind of that whole idea of, is it enough to just exist, or do you need to have a purpose, or is struggling to the struggle why you exist, that kind of thing. So the director and writer is a guy named Ben Sledge. He's a local as well. He's from Germantown, Gaithersburg.
Okay.
And very much inspired by Sisyphus rolling the rock up the.
Oh yeah.
and he said what he likes to imagine is that Sisyphus is happy because he has a reason. He has a thing he's supposed to do. So even though every day it resets, he still has purpose. And so so it's a. I mean, I'm biased, but it's a great little film.
Are there any other characters in the film, or just you?
Just me. Although there's more than one character in the film.
But you are the only actor.
I'm the only actor. Yeah.
It is a one-man. Show.
Yes, and it's like I said, it plays like a lost episode of the Twilight Zone. And if you like thriller or suspense or Twilight Zone or Hitchcock or anything like that, it's definitely worth checking out. It's available on our website, which is recursiontheorem.com.
Okay.
And they ask for it's a donate what you can or what you would like, or if you don't donate, just share it. Help us get the word out. So.
Right, sure. And I mean, I brought this up with Jamie Nash last week. It seemed like in more recent years, I don't know if it's the last 10 years or more, that a lot of horror, at least commercial horror, because it's easier to do, there's a lot of blood, there's a lot of CG, all this kind of CGI stuff, so that, you know, you don't see so much the cerebral kind of stuff, the suspense. You don't see the Hitchcock, you don't see the Twilight Zone, the stuff that scared me as a kid, because it was stuff you didn't see, that they played with your head.
Yeah.
And so, like, boy, you had nightmares and you couldn't sleep that night because of what that show might have planted in your head. And it seems like we need more of that.
I've always said the Sixth Sense to me is one of the scariest movies, and there's not really any. There's maybe one jump scare in it, but it's that constant feeling of what's coming, and I think it always goes in cycles. And like you said, it's with horror, it is very easy to just dump a lot of blood and screaming and action and running and but I think with the success of Get Out this past year with Jordan Peele, I feel like maybe there'll be a swing back towards the psychological, really building suspense and thriller. He's going to relaunch the Twilight Zone.
Oh, he is?
Jordan Peele is, yeah.
That's interesting.
I think with CBS.
To me, it's like a whole new, thing for him, because it's another guy who basically started in comedy. I remember looking Comedy Central, Key and Peele, I think he was in, and all very, very funny stuff. And then the two African American guys, and now he's directing suspense type things and building himself up as a director. That if you'd seen that show, Comedy Central, you never thought that's where he would go next.
But that's the old saying, is that anyone can die. Comedy's hard.
Right.
Comedy has rules. Comedy has much tighter rules than, there's a lot of people that can cry on cue, but can you deliver that joke in the right timing, in the right, completely believing it, not over punching it, not under punching it, and so yeah, I think if you're adept at comedy, you can definitely go the other direction, but it doesn't always work in the inverse.
Yeah, it's good for me to hear that from you, because I've used that with other people and say I think that's true. And I've heard that true, that people who do comedy can do drama, but people who do drama cannot necessarily do comedy.
Yeah.
And the same thing I do when I do music people. I say, they talk about jazz people can actually play classical, but classical people have a hard time playing jazz, and because they want to play it straight, like they play classic.
Yeah.
So that's sort of the same analogy there.
Yeah.
And so let me see. Now, as far as style differences, I guess, is kind of a little bit about what you just talked about in acting and the comedy versus, the drama. So if you had young people out there now today that want to get into acting, would you say don't, or would you say this is how you do it, or what advice would you give young actors?
The advice, and so Ken Arnold and I, and a guy named Robert Neil Marshall, who I know you're also trying to get on the show here. He's going to be involved with the Bill Tillman movie. We teach an acting workshop.
Okay.
And one of the things, it's unfortunately a lot of younger people get into acting because they want to be famous, they want to be celebrities, and you have to, if you're going to act, you have to do it because you love to act, and you have to be willing to just have your soul just ripped out of you with audition after audition after audition, and rejection, and that it's not what you see in the tabloids and just the high end that. Like I said, for me, my favorite actors have always been the character actors, the Bryan Cranstons and the Steve Buscemi's and Chris Cooper's and Sterling K. Brown and Andre Braugher. And these guys are the just great character actors doing great work. They're going to work in everything for the rest of their lives, and they're not necessarily, some of them have now become these bigger stars, but they started out for a very long time just being, I call them that guys. Because you see them, you're, there's that guy.
There's that guy, right.
I aspire to be that guy.
Well, that's good, because I mean, speaking of that, I think how many people go back if they have a long enough memory. I remember correctly, Bryan Cranston was just the father on Malcolm in the Middle.
Yeah.
And that's comedy, and he wasn't, like, he was that guy, he was just the dad.
Yeah.
The stories were all revolving around Malcolm and his crazy brothers.
Yeah.
And now, he's featuring in films, winning Oscars, all this kind of stuff, and it's great to see the character actors getting their due and getting starring parts. Used to be like people would look at somebody like Harry Dean Stanton, for example. There's an actor's actor, and that kind of thing. And I think you're right, because when Ken and Dan were in here, DeLuca and Arnold, they said you got to love it. This is what you said to do it. And something I heard before, they said the only really bad actor is a non-working actor. As long as you can stay a working actor, no matter how small the part might be. Even for Ken, says, he does his Appletinis with Ken. They said, we just do anything. Let's, just keep getting out there in front of the camera.
And that's when your job is when you're not working that's when you work on finding a new monologue or brushing up your materials that you're going to send to casting directors and agents and stuff. So there's always work to be done. There's always something that you can. I think our little saying is, "What have you done today?" to just take a step forward, and really trying to. It doesn't happen every day, but it's trying to more days than not, and you end up in a better place.
As I had mentioned before, and it goes to this before I get down to the last couple of questions here, is that Johnny Alonso. I saw him doing another interview and he is coming in here when he can. He said, his career, he said, is actually really auditioning.
Yep.
He says, I go to so many auditions, every week, every month, if I get one part or two parts in that time. But he says, you have to continue to put yourself out there.
Yep. That's the job. Your job is to audition. Your job is to go do the thing in the casting office. And then sometimes, as a bonus, you get to do the other thing. But your job is to become as good of an auditioner as you can. And it's a tough, really tough thing. Because it's not, you go and you go to all these like acting classes and acting, programs and you're on sets and you're on stages, but acting is auditioning is standing on an X. Yeah. And not moving outside of the little window that the camera has for you, and you might have rehearsed it sitting down, and they want you standing up, and so it's just really it's being as prepared as possible, and ready and open to whatever they throw at you, and
to survive, you leave the ego at home, because if you go through and say, boy, you get caught up in, boy, that was my 99th out of 100 rejections, you're going to get down on yourself.
I've always tried to look at it as I'm not auditioning for this role. I'm auditioning for everything this casting director is going to work on for the next 5 years. Because if I come in and I nail this, or if I just am real and do the thing here, I might not be right for this role, or somebody else might be even better for this role.
Right.
But I might be right for the next thing that comes along. And so that's how you're building on one audition is
builds onto
another.
Another. And casting directors see then know you, and they might see something and say, oh, I think he would be great for that part, kind of a thing.
Yeah.
So, do you have any upcoming projects that you're involved with?
I'm going to be working with Ken and Dan and Jamie. We're working on it's kind of a reboot. We had a web series several years ago, probably 08-ish. And that was really kind of as web series were starting to become a thing. YouTube was still new.
Right.
And there was only so much. I think at the time, YouTube, you couldn't have a video more than 10 minutes or something like that. So it really limited your ability to get a web series together. And so we had a web series that was a parody of the Ghost Hunters.
Right.
And it's called Para-Abnormal. And it follows this group of bumbling para-abnormal investigators. And so we had, I think we did 6 episodes.
Okay.
And each episode had 6 cases, and each episode was like 2 to 3 minutes.
Oh, okay.
So one case might have 5 episodes.
Oh, okay.
And so we're revisiting that because now I think the web series thing is a bit more developed, and we feel like there's still some stuff to be mined there.
Terrific.
Yeah.
Anything else?
No, that's it at the moment.
But I'm sure you'll be out there because you're auditioning all the time.
Not as much as I'd like,
Okay.
but working toward it.
Now we want you to let everybody know where they can find you. So we want you to give your contact information.
Okay.
And there you go, camera 3 over there.
You can find me online at danfranco.com, and that's Franco with a K, not like James Franco with a C. And I'm on Twitter, and my handle's at danfranco. And that's and I have a Facebook page as well. Just search for Dan Franco and you'll find that.
There we go. All right. Well, terrific. Time flew by.
Yeah.
Thank you for coming by.
Thank you for having me.
And that's another edition of the Paul Stefan Show, folks. And we were here today with Dan Franco. And tune in next time when we might be talking to another filmmaker. Find out. See you then.
You're watching The Paul Stefan Show on TV Free Baltimore.
Hello, I'm Steve Darnall, the publisher of Nostalgia Digest, and you're watching TV Free Baltimore. Well done.
The Despacito is on my shore, Maryland, my Maryland. His torch is at thy temple door, Maryland, my Maryland. Avenge the patriotic roar that fleck the streets of Baltimore, and be the battle queen.
This concludes another day of live stream broadcasting from TV Free Baltimore.